All right, good morning, everybody. Hello, my name is Miriam Roger, pronouns she and her, and this is my colleague, Alicia Riley. It's so lovely to be here, and I'm going to really try to start off these mini presentations, keeping us on track. Today, we're talking about our program, Your Way Forward. I'm going to introduce the overall program. Alicia is going to speak about the services at her clinic, and then the next two mini presentations are our colleagues who will speak about the way that Your Way Forward works at their clinics. So Your Way Forward is a collaborative program that exists in 9 nonprofit legal clinics in Ontario. For those who don't know about our legal clinic system, I'll provide also a little quick overview. There are about 75 legal clinics across the province who receive core funding to provide legal services to the most vulnerable people. That core funding comes from Legal Aid Ontario. You'll see on the slide some areas of law that are covered at legal clinics. There are geographic-based legal clinics which serve a particular region, as well as specialty clinics which provide services to a particular group of people. Our services exist in 9 of these clinics. We receive funding from the Department of Justice to provide dedicated services to survivors of intimate partner violence and sexual violence. This is legal services, but also in some clinics we're able to provide some more social wraparound support. You'll hear from my amazing colleagues about the different models of these services, which differ depending on community needs, resourcing, staff skill sets, et cetera, et cetera. We cover various areas of law and advocacy with the goal of filling existing gaps. We know, and you know, that these gaps are huge. And while we have generous overall project funding, this actually looks pretty thin on the ground, with a range of half a person up to 2 full-time people, depending on the clinic. We're all working at capacity and trying to manage that flow. We work with CREVAC on our evaluation, and our data demonstrates what we know and witness, and again, likely not a surprise to anyone in this room, that as our clients' vulnerabilities increase, so do the complexity of their legal problems, which corresponds to the exponential amount of substantive legal and social support that's required. We also work on a collaborative level, sharing materials, case conferencing, data collection, knowledge sharing, some systemic activism and law reform efforts, all while participating in a community of practice. We believe that we are stronger together, and that by working together, we are more efficient and effective. You'll see here the map of our services with Justice for Children and Youth and the Advocacy Centre for Tenants of Ontario providing, they're the two specialized clinics, and they provide services across the province. And then 7 clinics being spread across the southwest and southeast of the province. I'll also just say quickly that our funding is up in March 2026, and we're currently working with the other funded projects across the country to urge the federal government to recommit this funding. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I'm going to hand it over to Alicia to talk about Justice for Children and Youth.
So my name's Alicia, my pronouns are she and her, and I'm the case manager at Justice for Children and Youth. Justice for Children and Youth is a child and rights organization. We're a registered charity with core funding from Legal Aid Ontario. We have a staff of 22 with 9 lawyers, myself, the one case manager, and other staff supporting specialized programs. We are experts on legal issues as uniquely experienced by children and youth, and we provide comprehensive service to those facing complex legal, personal, and social issues. Justice for Children and Youth strives to protect and advance the legal rights and dignity of children and youth, and provides trauma-informed care through a multidisciplinary team, including legal services and support services. The young people that we serve are under the age of 18, with a few exceptions. So we do provide legal services to youth under the age of 25, whose legal issues relate to sexual violence or family violence. This also includes human trafficking. We also serve those up to 25 who are experiencing homelessness and or precarious immigration status. We do have a Ontario-wide mandate, so we are working with young people across the province. Thank you. So we provide Your Way Forward services at Justice for Children and Youth as a collaborative team. The lawyers provide a wide range of legal services to folks who are experiencing family violence, sexual assault, human trafficking. These legal services range from legal advice, so that could be about speaking to the police or reporting a crime. They provide victim representation. So through court cases, this could be in both the criminal and family legal systems. We provide support around restraining orders, sibling access, financial supports like child support, among others. And we provide support around name change, return of possessions, provincial offenses, leaving home, etc. Our team works to identify what folks exist in a young person's circle of care and really looks to identify the gaps around where we can provide support. As we know, the folks in this room are providing great supports and oftentimes have limited mandates about what work they can do. So we work to try and fill in those gaps. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Miriam and Alicia from Your Way Forward. All right, next I'd like to invite, please, Amanda Pierce and Clarice Alsop from Supporting Survivors of Gender-Based Violence, an Interdisciplinary Model.
Would you like another microphone? No, we'll share.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. We are feeling really energized this morning after our movement in the other room. We're very happy to be here today as part of the Your Way Forward Collaborative. My name is Amanda Pierce. I am the Director of Social Work Services at Legal Assistance of Windsor.
And my name is Clarice Alsop. You can also call me Claire. I am the lawyer that works on this specific project at our clinic.
So before we get into a little bit about the program itself that we're running, we want to talk a little bit about Legal Assistance of Windsor and why this program made so much sense for our legal clinic. We are one of many legal clinics across the province, but we are one of only a few that provides truly interdisciplinary services. So for over 50 years, our clinic has been providing legal and social work services in tandem because we recognize the value of this interdisciplinary approach. Our clinic is home to our core legal aid services, so we do a lot of work around eviction prevention and housing law, around social benefits, tribunals, ODSP denials, and then around some immigration work. But we also are home to a lot of really innovative programming. So we are home to an anti-human trafficking program now called the Windsor-Essex Counter-Exploitation Network that has been recognized nationally and internationally for our anti-exploitation work. And we're also home to a really robust migrant worker support program. Part of Essex County is Leamington. Leamington is home to one of the largest underglass farming communities in Canada. We have a ginormous temporary foreign worker program, which in some cases is really fabulous and in other cases rife for abuse. So we have these programs built in to our program, or our clinic, sorry. So when the funding calls came out, it just made sense for our clinic to be a part of this broader collaborative to provide services for people who've experienced violence. And for us, it made absolute sense that this was going to be an interdisciplinary project because frankly, that's all we know at Legal Assistance of Windsor is this intense collaboration. So when I'm looking at the French going, I don't know what that says. When we started putting together this program, we really wanted to operate under a couple of key philosophies that were going to guide our work. And as it happens, our core philosophies that we built this program around over the past 4 or so years, we found out that we were right on track and our core philosophies have really led us in this work and allowed us to do some really great community stuff. So our key ideas are around the notion that people have a right to trauma and violence-informed services. And for us as a service provider, it was really important for us to provide that front-facing to our clients, but it's also been a good opportunity for us as an organization to learn how to be a trauma and violence-informed organization internally in how we interact with each other and how we support each other in doing this work. This work is exhausting. This work will grind us down if we do not have the supports in place internally to protect each other so we can continue doing this. Core to the LAW philosophy is that legal and social needs are inherently connected and simply cannot be separated. I cannot expect my clients to show up to an LTB hearing first thing in the morning if they did not have a safe place to sleep last night. And I cannot expect them to be patient and peaceful when the judge is kind of giving them a hard time in a criminal court proceeding if they haven't eaten breakfast. So me as the social worker, I'm helping our clients meet those basic needs so that they can bring their best self to these legal systems. And finally, and something that I'm passionate about and I'm happy to talk to people about until I completely run out of breath, is the need for survivor-informed risk assessments, which need to guide the work across all of our sectors for people who have experienced harm. And for us, this work was really rooted in the recommendations born from the Renfrew County Inquest, which spoke to the need for survivor-informed risk assessments. And we have been relying really heavily on that work and have made some really great headway in our community around those risk assessments and their use in both family and criminal court. Oh. There we go. So when we're providing this work, I think it's really important for us to recognize that there's 4 key pieces in the work that our clinic is doing. I was, until I recently moved into my new role, the social worker providing service with Claire. And Claire and I each brought a really important piece of the puzzle. Claire understands those legal services incredibly well. I am able to provide that social work support, those risk assessments, that safety planning, that service navigation piece. But the key piece that's missing there is our survivor. They know their story best. They know what makes the most sense for them in terms of safety, and they know what their overarching goal is for justice. So for some, that justice is criminal involvement. For many, it is not. So our program really works to help them navigate that. But I think the key piece to our clinic's success is the broader community. So you have a picture of the Windsor skyline there, which is very beautiful. That's what you would see if you happen to be in Detroit. And the community in which we're embedded is really what has allowed this program to be successful, from the collaborations with our Violence Against Coordinating Committees, Violence Against Women Coordinating Committee, with collaborations from the Crown Attorney's Office, from the Victim Witness Office, from our family bar, and from all of the people in our community who are very committed to innovative programming. We have been allowed to be very, very successful in this work. So I'm going to talk to Claire pass to Claire for the last 2 minutes to talk a little bit about the unique legal services that she's able to provide.
If there's any other fellow lawyers in the room, you will know that having somebody to basically allow clients to have social work resources and get connected with other things that the law cannot solve is invaluable. So as part of my role here, I am able to explain to our survivors, our clients, what the limitations of the legal system are by providing independent legal advice and information to people who have experienced intimate partner violence or sexual assault. For most of our people, that's in family or criminal court, but we do also have other areas that we speak to as well. Because, as we all know, we are all limited in capacity, I cannot provide representation. Otherwise, I would literally never leave court because family court, criminal court, everything takes so long. But we do, as Amanda said, have a great community with private bar lawyers who work with us and who assist our clients either with legal aid certificates or through sometimes payment plans or pro bono work. So having this interdisciplinary model, I really don't know how other people can do this work outside as a lawyer because I am not trained in any sort of social work. That's not what law school teaches us. So ultimately, this is something that I think is such a key piece missing from other areas. So I hope to see this kind of model in other places as well. And that's it. Time's up.
Thank you very much, Amanda and Claire. All right. Next up, I'm going to welcome Sumaya Bauer and Leah Morris, who are on the topic of supporting the housing journey of renters experiencing gender-based violence.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Morris, and I'm a social worker at the Advocacy Centre for Tenants Ontario. I'm joined by my Your Way Forward project co-lead, Samaya Bauer, who is a staff lawyer. We're so pleased to be here to share about the work that we do. So the Advocacy Centre for Tenants Ontario is a specialty housing legal clinic that supports and advances the rights of low-income tenants in Ontario. ACTO's mandate includes providing legal advice, representation, law reform, community organizing, and education. ACTO is perhaps best known for our Tenant Duty Council program, where we provide brief legal advice to tenants who attend their hearing at the Landlord and Tenant Board without a lawyer. So you've heard from our colleagues in the Your Way Forward program that we're a part of, and we want to talk about how ACTO implements this program within the housing legal context. Because our goal was to expand housing legal services for survivors, we needed to first understand survivors' long-term housing journey in Ontario to identify existing gaps and ultimately inform the design of a specialized service. To do this, we completed a 3-year research project that involved 80 interviews, 168 survey responses, and a policy roundtable event. Throughout all stages, we talked to survivors and frontline service providers in legal and housing contexts in Ontario. This past June, we launched our report, The Journey to Housing Stability for Survivors of Gender-Based Violence. And so next, we'll share some key insights from our report and from the service that we provide.
So this here is the housing continuum. It's a framework used by policymakers to describe a full range of housing, from homelessness to emergency shelter, transitional and supportive housing, community housing, affordable housing, and finally, private market rent. It was originally imagined as a step-by-step path with home ownership as the endpoint. In reality, home ownership is out of reach for most, and the system doesn't function as a smooth path. Our research shows it operates more like interlocking gears. When one part stalls, the whole system is disrupted. Rental housing is a key part of the system, even though some landlords view it as separate. Survivors often leave their homes because of the violence itself. In our study, only one participant was able to remain in her unit. Many survivors then couch surf with friends or family, which strains the relationship. In northern, rural, and Indigenous communities, where new housing is not being built, couch surfing is often the only long-term housing option. Others shelter in hotels, cars, garages, and unwinterized sheds and cabins, which is a form of hidden homelessness. Visible homelessness is also growing. Shelters are at capacity. Encampments are increasing across Ontario. In our study, 27% of participants had lived outside at some point. Survivors who became unsheltered experienced far more years of trauma, chronic homelessness, and housing instability than those who did not. We'll now turn to the legal context, beginning with the unique rental housing challenges that survivors face and the limited protections available under current legislation. Participants identified a wide range of issues which occurred both while living with the person causing harm and after they left. Rental arrears were the most common issue leading to eviction, often caused by financial abuse. Damage to the unit caused by violence left survivors responsible for repair costs. If they couldn't pay to fix it, they often got an eviction notice. Survivors frequently live in unsafe housing conditions, and maintenance issues are common. A lack of tenant protections leave many vulnerable, such as where they share a kitchen or bathroom with their landlord, or if they're not on the lease. Landlords threaten eviction because of disturbances caused by violence. Sexual exploitation by landlords was an emerging trend, with landlords requesting sex in exchange for rent. Roommate abuse was another growing issue, as many people share smaller spaces and sometimes form intimate partner relationships. Finally, discrimination and harassment by landlords is widespread. Faced with this carousel of rental issues, many survivors choose to leave their home rather than stay and try and fight their legal issues. And legal protections remain limited under Ontario's Residential Tenancies Act. If there's a joint tenancy, the survivor cannot remove the person from harm on the lease. And there is an N15 tenant's notice to end the tenancy because of fear of sexual or domestic violence and abuse. Survivors can break the lease due to violence, giving a 28 days notice, but it has limited usefulness in today's affordability crisis. Where does a survivor go after that 28 days is done?
So our report includes 17 policy recommendations, and today I will focus on the first, which is a call to declare IPV and GBV epidemics. This public declaration would compel all levels of government to increase funding to end GBV and must include adequate funding for the housing and homelessness sector. Because survivors face unique rental housing challenges, the provincial government must also increase funding for housing legal services to support survivors' right to security of tenure. This declaration could be used immediately in courts, tribunals, and administrative bodies as evidence that adjudicators must consider the severity of a survivor situation when making their decisions. This has the potential to increase survivors' access to justice.
And so our service is comprised of 8 parts. We provide legal representation for tenants experiencing gender-based violence, including support with housing access, tenant applications, and eviction cases. Every client receives wraparound services from a lawyer and a social worker. Our services are trauma-informed and intakes are conducted jointly, so clients only have to tell their story once and have access to counseling. We maintain a low barrier model. We don't have any income eligibility. We help regardless of immigration status, and we have no time limits on our support. Collaboration is central to our work. We partner closely with actors in the gender-based violence and legal sectors, including our Your Way Forward partner clinics. Our model is survivor-informed and continuously improved through feedback. It's been designed for replication across Ontario and can be adapted by organizations to meet the complex needs of survivors in your region. And in addition to direct service, we actively engage in law reform. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out directly or visit our website for our report and executive summary.
Very much, Leah and Sumaya. All right, I'm going to welcome up Lauren Power, who's presenting on the topic of decolonizing GBV work. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Power. I'm the Executive Director of Muskoka Parry Sound Sexual Assault Services. And I'm talking today just about 2 programs that we have funded. I'm going to begin by just saying my pronouns are she and her, and I also want to express gratitude to the many teachers that I've had in this journey. Staff members, board members, Indigenous knowledge keepers, and elders who've informed me in my journey in this decolonizing work. I've been with the agency now for 22 years. And our agency began, if you look in the corner, there's a logo with a sweetgrass braid around it. And our first logo, which was made in 1993, also had a sweetgrass braid in it. And so I just want to acknowledge those folks over the years who have recognized the amount of colonial violence, its ties, and it's really the umbrella over which gender-based violence is just a part. And so I'm going to begin by just saying these projects for our sexual assault developed for our sexual assault center developed from circle discussions with human trafficking survivors and their frontline supporters for them. So we did this initial project in 2022, Gijawaso Dajikwen, and we put a pretty wide social media network out for that and had a number of circles over a 4-month period and mind mapped them just to help us understand what were the barriers those Indigenous folks were facing in terms of accessing supports and to really understand that clearly. From there, we began this program with partnerships with Tala Tutusis and Suzanne Smoke, both knowledge keepers, began 13 Moons of Healing, which was an online program. And we learned more about what folks were needing, what they were experiencing, what the barriers were. This began with Taboo, our agency in Wasauksing First Nation. And in those projects, folks began to bring forward their needs in terms of what did they need from mainstream services like sexual assault centers that they weren't getting, that turned them away. And we see this in part as a huge contributor to the MMIW problems, right? To the barriers that stop folks from getting services and make them more vulnerable. So just, I put on here, partnerships are everything. We can't do this alone. And those are a few of the partners that we're working with right now. This project morphed. Oops. Okay, let's go on. This morphed into this project, Anje Bamadsawin, which is a Wage Canada funded project. It's in its third year. It's in its final pieces. One of the barriers that we knew about was that having a file in a white person agency and a settler agency was a real barrier. And so we started a talking circle online. Folks could message for the link for it, and we didn't keep a file on those folks. They could come in and get some resources and support. We considered it an open group in terms of the way that it functioned, but that was a place to share and be heard and validated. So that project is in its last bit of time. It also included opportunities for land-based healing land-based healing retreats held at Limberlost Forest and Woodlands Cultural Center. So we've held them in a few different locations around Ontario. This project takes folks from all over colonial Ontario. And those women, some of the retreats, we've been able to bring their children along as well so that it's not a barrier for them to come and have to leave children behind. And we've had children's programming available for them. So learning and acquiring culture, right? Learning language. Those are seen as really, really important. Advocacy and awareness about sexual violence in communities, often not talked about. There's still a huge barrier in sharing because of the ties between people in small communities. And so we're trying to address some of that as an outside agency, as an agency that can see them online. There's more confidentiality that they can experience that way. And the retreats are away from their own communities. We're gradually changing some of this, though, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Updating the NORAD toolkit. I don't know if people are aware of that. It's Northern Ontario research on anti-human trafficking. There's a toolkit that was developed. It's over 5 years now that toolkit has been in place, and we're going to try to update it the best we can and make it available. And we're publicizing it because it has been a helpful thing for us in the work that we do. The second project that we have right now, Akanu Amadiwa Ji Nukadijing, is they who come together with her on the land to live a tender life. It's this project was originally had a different name, and this is the name that the youth chose for themselves. So there's a shot of them in a retreat. And we have right now 10 youth who are helping us examine all the barriers that Indigenous youth are experiencing in accessing mental health and sexual assault services. So I'm just gonna, we're in year 3 of 5. And so that project now is developing a pilot that we're gonna do in our region. So we're partnering hopefully now with Wata First Nation to use some of their land for ceremony. And that's a grant from the Ontario Trillium Foundation Youth Opportunities Fund for 5 years. So in all of our work, we do mind maps. The mind map is a visual story. I'm sure I think we saw one already in a presentation. It's a wonderful way to capture the information. My time's up. I can't talk anymore. But those mind maps are available. They hold a wealth of information, and just get a hold of me if you're interested in knowing more. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. All right, there's Lauren's information if you want to reach out. Next up, I'm going to welcome Kate Pullman, who will be presenting on the topic Safety Assessment and Risk Management for First Nation Survivors of Intimate Partner Violence.
Good morning. My name is Kate Pullman, and I serve as research lead with the Women's Initiative sector at Chiefs of Ontario, or COO. Our sector works to advance policy, research, and tools that promote safety, justice, and well-being for First Nations women, girls, and 2S LGBTQ+ people across Ontario. I have spent most of my life in the GBV world. For me, this isn't just a job, it's who I am. It all started when I was a little girl. I saw Madeleine McCann all over the news and decided I was going to solve her disappearance. So while my peers were playing with Legos or asleep, I was on web sleuths researching away. I had to know, why do people do this? Why girls and women? Why is it called violence against women, and what's different about it? Is this why my brother's allowed to walk the dog at night, but I'm not? Why hasn't somebody fixed this yet? I begged my mother to let me print out flyers and organize a local search party for Madeleine. Finally, she had to sit me down and break it to me. I was a child, and this was a job for the police. Web Sleuths was not an appropriate website for a child. We lived in Calgary, Alberta, and Madeleine McCann went missing in Portugal, so she was not going to turn up at Shoppers Drug Mart down the street. Like any parent, I think she hoped her little aspiring McGruff the crime dog would forget that phase and keep the same energy, but find something a bit happier and less dramatic to channel it into. You can see how that turned out. COO is proud to have created a First Nations Intimate Partner Violence Safety Assessment and Risk Management Toolkit, or ASARM. This toolkit is urgently needed for many reasons. Research has proven that First Nations women, girls, and 2S+ people are subjected to disproportionate rates of all forms of GBV, including IPV. This is rooted in historical and ongoing trauma from colonization. Despite extensive documentation of the need, First Nations women struggle to access culturally relevant IPV crisis services. According to national statistics, First Nations women are 6 times more likely to be killed as a result of violence than settler women in Canada. Additionally, Indigenous women account for 4% of the population, but 1 out of 6 homicides. Most Ontario First Nations do not have victim services, and many do not have other GBV resources such as women's shelters. Where such services do exist, they tend to be overwhelmed and under-resourced. This means that the responsibility of providing victim services frequently falls to frontline staff, such as police, EMTs, nurses, addictions workers, who typically do not receive in-depth training on IPV and may be navigating their own trauma. This creates complex situations. In addition to the under-resourcing of First Nation services, there are systemic barriers to accessing mainstream resources. Mainstream SARM tools are generally not designed with a First Nations context in mind, nor have they been empirically validated with this population. This context is distinct due to intersecting issues such as historical trauma, widespread firearm ownership, human trafficking, and missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2S+ people, MMIWG 2S+. Mainstream tools thus might not accurately assess the risk to a First Nations survivor, which can lead to both overreactions and underreactions. This work is also closely aligned with COO's broader advocacy efforts, including the implementation of the MMIWG 2S+ Calls for Justice and development of our Calls for Justice report card. To address these gaps, COO collaborated with hundreds of experts and service providers from across Ontario, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. We hosted working groups and trainings. For some, this was their first exposure to concepts such as coercive control or risk assessment. A near universal experience shared was that mainstream SARM tools do not work well in a First Nations context. This work was further strengthened by the guidance and validation from our First Nations Women's Council, who emphasized the importance of community-based safety planning rooted in traditional knowledge systems. A particular concern raised was the treatment of firearms in risk assessments. On a First Nation, firearm ownership is very common due to both the cultural tradition of hunting and the practicalities of rural life. Some service providers voiced concerns that mainstream tools disproportionately flag First Nations survivors as high risk due to firearm presence without understanding the context. High risk means an increased likelihood of severe violence, including homicide. Common indicators of a high-risk case include, but are not limited to, extreme jealousy, obsession with weapons, abuse during pregnancy, sexual violence, and choking. That includes any act that restricts breathing, such as smothering or non-fatal drowning, and is considered one of the strongest predictors of homicide. There is a difference between someone who hunts and someone who is obsessed with firearms or uses them to intimidate people. Overgeneralizing these scenarios dilutes the meaning of the high-risk label and can lead to flawed interventions. This is just one example of the need for culturally competent approaches. Let me walk you through the structure of the ASARM toolkit. It is currently over 200 pages long and divided into 3 sections with appendices and references. We are in the process of revising and condensing the toolkit while also incorporating a stronger distinctions-based lens. The first section includes an introduction and education for the worker. Topics include dynamics of IPV, special considerations in the First Nations context, self-care, and foundational teachings such as the medicine wheel and Great Tree of Peace. The introduction includes key information that participants voiced to us was not always understood. For instance, while it is most often men who abuse women, IPV can be perpetrated or experienced by anyone, including in 2S LGBTQ+ relationships. The second section includes a screening questionnaire to help the support worker understand the survivor's situation, what support they need, and whether the situation should be labeled high risk. This section also includes questions specific to First Nations contexts, such as intergenerational trauma and colonial harms. The third section includes tools for survivor-led risk management and safety planning with guidance around planning to leave, responding to unexpected encounters with the abuser, ensuring the children's safety and staying safe in the workplace. Emphasizing a survivor-led approach is essential because abuse strips a person of agency, identity, and self-efficacy. By making choices and taking action in their own lives, survivors are empowered to reclaim what was stolen and challenge negative self-beliefs. This concludes my presentation. I welcome questions, would be happy to connect further. Miigwech, niawe, merci, and thank you.
Thank you, Kate. All right, we have a full room, so it's nice to see everybody in here, a lot of interest. So next up, I'm going to welcome our next presenters, Mercy Watetu and Denise Johnson, that are presenting Bleeding While Leading, the water carrier concept as an Afrocentric framework to address GBV among African, Caribbean, and Black women.
Good morning. Oh, that's us. So before we start, we want to share greetings from Elder Chris Leonard, who is not here today. So can you guys say you greet her back? Thank you. So this is a large study, and today we just want to focus on 2 circles that entirely focused on service providers. We won't all hear much, but somebody highlighted that we need to be naming gender-based violence as a pandemic within our city. We already know the United Nations have already named it as a silent pandemic, so we are lagging behind in acknowledging this here in Ontario. I'm sure in this room, everyone knows that every 48 hours, we're losing somebody to femicide, right? And it's already been highlighted that Indigenous, Black, and 2L LGBTQ women, girls, and gender diverse folks are highly disproportionate when it comes to gender-based violence. And this, as you can imagine, tears our fabric, and we need to come together to make sure that we're accountable, we're holding people accountable, and we're working collectively to make sure that we are mending our fabric instead of letting it get torn. You're pushing it. So what we want to focus today is on African, Caribbean, and Black women and how they access services. we do know that for Black women, they take time before they go to access services in the mainstream. We know that when they do go accessing services, often they are either turned away. There's a lot of stereotypes that comes when supporting Black women. We know some of them, like the strong Black woman. I know that one is familiar. We know Black women have been blamed for having survived gender-based violence. So there's a lot of victim blaming. And this actually comes from service providers. There's a lot of gatekeeping. They've been called the angry Black woman when all you need to do is try and access services and support. So we also know that there's lack of adequate resources and culturally inclusive services. So our study aimed to look at, like I highlighted, investigate the experiences of African, Caribbean, and Black women. And we focused on both survivors. We also looked at healthcare professionals and service providers. So today we are focusing on service providers and healthcare professionals that are survivors and still doing the work. So we wanted to make sure that we are not leaving them behind and actually acknowledge that they're unpacking traumas on a daily basis, yet they're also living through their own traumas, and highlight the lack of spaces or lack of services for them to access.
So in order to create those spaces, we drew on a concept called the water carrier concept. And what that really is, it's both symbolic and practical. And it's symbolic to just central community wellness, because often in spaces, this is overlooked and their responses are overlooked. So it acknowledges the quiet leadership and labor of ACB women in navigating and transforming systems of violence. So with the concept, it's just a metaphor for the weight of that communal healing. It was an embodiment of collective care, resilience, and cultural knowledge, and how that knowledge is often unsupported and invisibilized. So what we had were a series of circles and also interviews where women were able to come to the well as carriers and receive what they need. The basket that you see there just represented that communal well of healing. All the hands around were all the women contributing, giving and taking, and the shadow around it is the contribution of our ancestors in terms of that healing. And so how we did that in our circles is we were really intentional about disrupting isolation through collective storytelling. So on the picture, what you see is one of our service provider circles that we held. And these spaces were survivor-centered, they're non-hierarchical, and they're really grounded in Afrocentric oral traditions of storytelling and body movement. And it just facilitated just a space for healing and cultural continuity. And one of the things that we found with the circles is that, for many of the women sitting in that circle, every time it was, this was the first time they were in a space like this and felt that they could come as their authentic selves. And in the next slide, we'll hear about just some of the responses from the survivors who participated in those circles.
We're not going to read all this because our time is running out, but what we want to highlight was that in the basket that you saw, we also emphasized that women do not walk alone, they walk as collective. They also walk with their ancestors. So these shadowy hands there, emphasizes the ancestors walking with you and reminding you that you don't always have to be strong all the time. So if you're interested in knowing more about the circles, we're here to explain all the symbolism that was there. But one of the things was, I want to just have 30 seconds. Oh, okay, cool. So I wanted to just read this one quickly from a survivor, Titi, who highlighted that I'm holding up this vivid vision, but it's as if people have blinders on. They grasp the significance of supporting Black women, yet the concept of creating spaces for them and delving into the intersectionality seems to elude them. It's baffling how topics like feminism have been on the table for centuries, and some are still questioning why it's crucial. It's almost as as if we're trying to bring everyone together to complete a puzzle, and some just can't see the pieces you're dealing with. I am tired of always leading while bleeding. So we need to do something to stop this bleeding. And last slide.
Yeah. And so just quickly, just some of the implications for practice that came out of the work, and that is just to recognize and compensate the emotional labor of service providers and survivors, and to integrate Afrocentric and feminist work frameworks into the work and into the spaces, and to be intentional about putting those in the spaces where we're creating for healing, and building wells that make sense for the folks who need to come. And yeah, dignified support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mercy and Denise. Mercy, you'll stay with us, and I'm going to welcome Bridget Antwi on the topic of Ushanga Girls program, Stringing Beads of Meaningful Change.
It's okay. We're not going to repeat some of the things, but we just want to highlight that because we're very impatient, we could not wait to finish the study before we started implementing what we were hearing from the women. So this is one of the responses and an implementation of what came out of that study. We heard from the women when we were sitting in the circles that there's no spaces for young girls. There's no prevention. We're not having conversations around prevention. So we wanted to make sure that we are curating these spaces earlier on so women don't have to be 64 before they sit in their first talking and healing circles. So Ushanga. So I want my beads so people can understand what Ushanga means. Ushanga means beads. And this was the idea of making sure when we string the beads together, each bead represents a girl. And when you know, for people that make beads, they make something beautiful. And the spaces that we're creating and curating for girls, we want them to look and feel beautiful as they are.
Okay, so I'm just going to be talking about the actual implementation of the program itself. So the girls and I in Ushanga really recognize that healing isn't just a concept, but something deeply rooted in Afrocentric principles. So we have a lot of different aspects that we hit on within our program. So the first thing is the holistic mental health focus. So within the program, I run journaling and storytelling circles where the girls come together and can really express their thoughts and opinions, but then also find healing through their shared narratives. And of course, this is really important to orient them towards mindfulness and emotional regulation as it continues to help them build resilience over time. Another aspect is our gender-based violence education. So this helps the girls come together, especially considering a lot of them have experienced or witnessed intimate partner violence within their family homes. And so to have conversations around consent, healthy relationships, and boundary settings have been really transformative for the girls. And as well, seeing them join together in this space has allowed them to create more confidence to address GBV within their own communities. And then another aspect is our leadership and mentorship. So we have girls ranging from 12 to 20, and within this way, the older girls are really taking the younger girls under their wing and supporting them in different aspects of their life, like life skills or other challenges that they're experiencing. So we get the older girls getting the experience of being leaders within the community, and the younger girls gaining that opportunity to get leadership as well. So to talk about what we've seen an increase in emotional regulation and as well as self-advocacy for the girls. I've been hearing so many stories from the girls share about situations where they're confronting stereotypes and different things that they've heard within their school environments as well. So it's been really amazing to see how they've become leaders within their communities as well. We do have hopes to scale this model, of course. We know that this started as a pilot within our organization, but we do really hope that this can be implemented into different communities and collaborations as well, so that we can adapt this Ubuntu-based approaches within other organizations. And then, of course, this would, of course, bridge Afrocentric models within mainstream mental health-focused organizations as well. So before closing, just want to leave you all off with this lasting thought that healing is like stringing beads. Every single connection strengthens the whole. Within Ushanga, the girls have really been able to create a community and a connection amongst each other. We know this is just the beginning. Want to encourage you all to collaborate and continue researching how different Afrocentric principles can be integrated into the mental health support that you provide. But we hope to continue this conversation beyond today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much to Mercy and to Bridget. Okay. Next, we have a group that's going to be presenting from Victim Services Toronto for T.E.A.R. Welcome. Ashmita Roy, correct.
Thank you very much. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ashmita Roy. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with Victim Services Toronto. I'm excited to talk to you all and share some stories from our T.E.A.R program, which stands for Teens Ending Abusive Relationships. So Victim Services Toronto provides crisis intervention, prevention, and response services to anybody who's experienced any kind of crime or sudden tragedy. So within our prevention kind of sector is our T.E.A.R program, where we provide workshops through schools in the TDSB and the TCDSB from grades 5 to 12 on healthy relationships, consent, online safety, and human trafficking prevention. So our vision is to empower youth with the tools to have safe and healthy relationships both online and in person, and to be leaders and create positive changes in the community. So I want to share some stories from each of our different kinds of workshops. So our Healthy Relationships workshops, all of our workshops focus not only on intimate relationships, but familial relationships, friendships, and other relationships that youth might have in their lives. So when it comes to our Healthy Relationships workshop, I was running a workshop for a class of grade 5 students. And after the workshop, I was approached by 2 young girls who disclosed to me that they were experiencing abuse in the home. Up until this point, they had never spoken to another adult outside their family about their experiences and had been pretty much exclusively relying on one another for emotional support to deal with their respective situations. So although what they were experiencing was not normal, it had been normalized because that was kind of the frame of reference that they had. So through the workshop, they were able to identify that they were in unsafe situations, although those situations had been normalized, and we were able to connect them with supports at their schools so that they can kind of know that they don't have to deal with that alone. And they were able to kind of build that circle of care for themselves. During our consent workshops, we love using relevant examples that get the kids excited, like from TV shows and movies that they've seen. So I don't know if any of you've seen the movie To All the Boys I've Loved Before. It came out a couple of years ago on Netflix. But there's a really interesting example there of sexual assault that happens to one of the male characters, the male lead. And so in one of the classrooms, this was a grade 8 class, this clip sparked a really interesting discussion about consent violations, if they count when they happen to boys, and kind of a really interesting conversation about power dynamics and gender roles. Even though we know that sexual violence is a gendered crime, it was really interesting for the students to go back and forth and expand their ideas of what does consent look like for everybody. And so we were able to build out this idea of how do we create an environment that is safe for everybody, where all consent violations are taken seriously, and we build those boundaries and mutual respect within our classrooms. All right, as we all know, the world of online safety is becoming increasingly complicated, increasingly weird, and our youth are getting very much entangled in some very strange and unsafe dynamics online. So after one of our online safety workshops, I was approached by another grade 6 student who was talking to me about how she was feeling really isolated at home. She had questions about sexuality and sex and puberty that she did not feel like she could get answered by her caregiver. She didn't feel like that she could turn to them and have those open conversations. So she had recently downloaded Snapchat. And so she had taken to adding kind of random people on Snapchat and reaching out to them as a source of information and having connections and conversations. Unfortunately, she did get into a very unsafe situation where she was pressured and manipulated by somebody that she had randomly added, who she thought was like a 14-year-old girl from Delaware who solicited nude images and videos. And so after that situation, we were able to get her connected with supports, but also more importantly, get to the root cause of why she was reaching out to people on Snapchat for kind of this kind of information in the first place, and address those root causes of this behavior. When it comes to human trafficking, there are so many myths and misconceptions that young people have, whether that is the fact that they think people will roll up in a white van and grab them off the street, or that traffickers are exclusively old, creepy men. So we've been able to dispel a lot of those myths and misconceptions, and we work in schools where there are many ongoing cases of youth who are experiencing trafficking or vulnerable to trafficking, so we can help them identify their experiences as unsafe and start building out those supports. All right, so the last thing I want to chat about is our mobile program. So we are able to reach a lot of students through this program who are often sidelined in conversations around abuse prevention and gender-based violence prevention while being the most vulnerable to experiencing those things. And I'm talking about youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we do all 4 of these topics at different schools with those students. And after our session on consent, I was approached by a student who is actively in an abusive relationship, and she wanted to learn more about how she can build her skills around enforcing boundaries because she's been experiencing a lot of coercive control tactics. So we were able to work with her social worker, helped her find strategies to build her confidence, practicing no and safety plan for herself, and just get her connected to wider resources to support her. So just a little bit about our impact. In the last school year, we reached 217 different workshops. Our T.E.A.R mobile program was in its pilot year last year, and we ran it in 8 schools, reached 156 students. 95% of educators and school staff would have us back to present different workshops, and students rated their understanding of how to get support and resources at 76%. If you have any questions or would like to chat further, I would be happy to chat, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ashmita. Next, I'd like to introduce Corry Coupland, who will be presenting on Boys Will Be Wise, How WiseGuyz is Shaping Healthier Masculinities.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm Corry Coupland. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from the Center for Sexuality in Calgary, and I'm here presenting on behalf of our WiseGuyz program. So what does it really mean to be a man? And how are those messages shaping boys' and men's health and relationships today? So the reality is that harmful gender norms have real consequences. They have consequences to the men and boys, they have consequences to their relationships, and they have consequences to our communities. So we see the impact of rising mental health issues, gender-based violence, and unhealthy relationship patterns. In Canada, men die by suicide at nearly 3 times the rate of women, with men in midlife most at risk. One reason is emotional suppression, those familiar messages like, suck it up, take it like a man. When men are socialized to hide vulnerability, they are far less likely to reach out for help. Instead, stress and pain are often masked, leading to destructive coping strategies, and at the extreme, suicide and violence. While fewer men attempt suicide compared to women, cultural expectations of toughness contribute to much higher completion rates. While these statistics on this slide are alarming overall, I want to point to 2 things. So 40% of men in Canada have never spoken about their mental health, and 94% of victims of gender-related homicide were killed by a current or former intimate partner or a family member. But this isn't toxic masculinity, which actually is not a term that we use at the center. It's about recognizing how rigid, health-harming masculinity norms are connected to violence, poor mental health, and inequity. And if we can change those norms, we can change the outcomes for men and boys, for their families, and for relationships. So WiseGuyz is a program that we at the center created in 2010, and it's all about giving boys the tools they need to push back against those harmful, limiting stereotypes about what it means to be a man. So it's actually a healthy relationships program that was designed to be delivered in schools for grade 9 boys. So over approximately 20 to 30 hours, boys explore gender, relationships, sexual health, while also building the skills to form healthier identities and connections. The program's goals were to strengthen mental health, improve relationships, advance gender equity, and ultimately prevent gender-based violence. So WiseGuyz is poised to be the first gender transformative program for boys in Canada. So since its original version, which was the school-based program, it's now developed into several different programs to meet young men and boys where they're at. So we have a brand new elementary program series that's for grades 4, 5, and 6, and it's about 20 sessions and 20 hours per grade. For older youth, we have a community program that reaches those ages 13 to 21, and it's offered in different program series at either 14 or 20 sessions with approximately 20 to 30 hours of content and a recreational component. And for justice-involved youth, WiseGuyz offers both group and one-on-one sessions, with group sessions ranging from 8 to 20 sessions and one-on-one being tailored to the individual needs of that youth, and ranges between 5 and 10 sessions and 5 to 10 hours. So really what makes WiseGuyz different is its core components. So there are 5 principles that the program is based on. So social emotional skills building, so emotional literacy, communication, empathy building, sexual health education, which includes consent, healthy relationship awareness, setting boundaries, respecting boundaries, gender and social norm education, the exploration of power and privilege, and it's all grounded in transformational learning principles, which uses critical pedagogy to challenge and change perspectives. So all of these elements work together to create a safe and engaging space where boys can rethink masculinity and build healthier identities and relationships. And we know it works. So through a long-standing academic community partnership with the University of Calgary's Hope Lab, we know that WiseGuyz increases awareness of emotions, it builds better mental health, it strengthens sexual health literacy, it improves healthy relationship skills, it decreases homophobic attitudes, it increases critical thinking about masculinity, and it increases positive bystander intervention behaviors in response to peer violence. But it can probably best be summarized by the words of one of our former WiseGuyz participants. So the man box was huge for me. Before WiseGuyz, I would think it was wrong. I wouldn't listen to other people's experiences. Now I see that things don't have to be about pressures. I can apply diversity to my life. I wouldn't judge other people now. If I see a guy crying, I wouldn't tell him to stop. I would comfort them. I didn't talk about it at first. People who weren't in WiseGuyz would ask me questions. They thought it was about sex and relationships. Then we had to tell them, no, it's not just about that. It's about a spectrum. It's the gender box, knowing who you are, knowing you don't have to be a certain thing. It's something more than just talking about sex and relationships. It's forming community, educating adolescent males to become better in all areas of their life. So since 2018, when we started scaling WiseGuyz, we have trained over 30 sites across Canada, which includes a range of communities and programs. We've been fortunate to deliver on First Nations with First Nation partners and in northern communities in the Northwest Territories and soon to be in the Yukon. So what are the ways that we can support boys and young men and guide them towards healthier masculinities? First, shameless plug, you can be a WiseGuyz scaling partner and partner with us to deliver WiseGuyz in your community. You can also model emotional openness, show vulnerability, talk about your feelings, normalize emotional expression, challenge harmful gender norms, and promote gender equity. So call out the stereotypes, boys don't cry, man up, and replace them with messages of empathy and respect. Engage boys in conversations about fairness, equity, and allyship with girls, women, and gender diverse peers. Create safe spaces, build environments like classrooms, workplaces, community spaces where boys feel safe to express themselves without judgment. Support comprehensive sex ed. Advocate for inclusive, opt-out, evidence-based programs that teach consent, respect, empathy, boundaries, and practice everyday allyship. So model inclusive language, intervene in harmful behaviors, and demonstrate respect for all genders. Thank you very much. Here is our information and our socials, and a list some of our WiseGuyz publications.
Thank you so much, Carrie. All right. Next up, we have a topic on real pep talk. Hello. Strengthening adolescent resilience and awareness to prevent gender-based violence through the Pep Talk Primary Prevention Program. Rochelle.
What's that? 7 minutes? Yes. All right, starting now. Hi, everyone. The slides? Okay, cool. All right. I feel like Taylor Swift with a microphone. It's as close as I get. Okay, so this is a presentation that has been done in collaboration with the University of Toronto, Factor and Wintage Faculty of Social Work, and Boost. And we have some Boost CYAC folks. There they are. Thank you. Thanks for coming, Audrey and Dwayne. This is about the Pep Talk program. So just to give a little bit of a rationale and background, I'm Rachel Pascoe. I am she, her pronouns, and I am a recent PhD graduate from the Factor and Wintage Faculty of Social Work. Should have said that. Thank you. And so is Dr. Carolyn O'Connor, who is presenting from the sidelines, but I'll call her out. So rationale, we know that gender-based violence can start in early adolescence. It's actually documented to have its beginnings in the middle school age group, which is what we were targeting. It takes on diverse and complex forms, and sexual harassment was identified with cross-gender sexual harassment increasing with age and more cases perpetrated by males than females. We know that once university students start getting to university and engaging in studies, they tend to say that earlier intervention would have been helpful for avoiding scenarios in which gender-based violence and lack of sexual consent were concerns. We also know from the dissertation work of Dr. O'Connor, who's right there, so you can embarrass her, that greater perceived negative sanctions of dating violence and higher endorsement of gender stereotypes are significantly related to sexual consent attitudes and norms. And I got that right, Carolyn, right? Okay, cool. So the purpose of this study was to evaluate the Pep Talk program, which is developed by Boost CYAC, to help youth build skills for establishing healthy relationships and preventing unhealthy relationships and abuse in the middle school age. And that's what makes it quite unique in terms of interventions. So the Pep Talk program is a school-paced program. We have one of the facilitators here today who's very bright. So if anyone has any questions, please put them on the app and be challenging, because Dwayne can take it. I know it, right? Yeah, you got it. So this program has been developed following evidence-based research, and it covers things like self-esteem, communication, consent, gender stereotypes, and healthy relationships, which we know from the literature is not commonly covered in sexual education programming in general in schools or health programming in North America. So this study took on a pre and post design. Researchers compared scores from the Pep Talk intervention group, which had about 179 kids. And then there were the match control kids who were non-participating. More on that later, though, because that was a little bit of a surprise finding. So the measures that they completed at pre-test, which was before the intervention Pep Talk, and then at the end of it, included the sexual consent scale, acceptance of dating violence, social support, past peer victimization, which was developed by the researchers. Thank you, Dr. Carolyn, and the Connor-Davidson resilience scale, which might be familiar because I've been hearing it already. Been hearing lots of these scales throughout this morning. We don't have to talk about the analysis. It's a little boring, but we did some stats. Paired sample t-tests between intervention and pre-tests and post-tests. However, we wanted to compare the control group with the intervention group, and unfortunately, they were just too different at the onset to compare adequately, which was a methodological error on our part, which is why research is amazing, because we get to learn from it and do better next time. In terms of the 3 minutes already, okay. In terms of the demographics of the intervention group, we had a relatively diverse sample. Of course, this research was done during this tiny, pandemic. So we had some difficulty in recruiting at the onset of that, things moving online, back on in person. Despite that, with some methodological limitations, we had a relatively diverse group.
perhaps reflective of the Toronto environment where the study was taking place. And just of note, in terms of dating relationship status, a majority of the middle school students in grades 7 and 8 reported not dating, while about 10%, 9.5% said they were dating. And 7.3% said they were sexually active and defined that as engaging in oral sexual activity and masturbation. So therefore, we got to study this, right? Like we got to be offering interventions because this is not a latent period in developmental life. So what did we find? I'm going to kind of just go through this. Besides the null results, so no changes found, we did find that a total increase was statistically significant in the acceptance of dating violence subscales. So perceived negative sanctions for not being consensual increased, gender stereotyping increased. Interesting. More on that in the publication. We found that, and that could be, like them getting a little more honest about their reporting. We found that social support from friends increased, sexual consent scales increased, such as indirect behavioral approaches to consent. So they understood consent better from a nonverbal standpoint. Past peer victimization increased, again, perhaps getting a little more honest about their experiences. And resilience was quite statistically increased significantly. There was also a decrease in the lack of perceived behavioral control. So they felt more in control from a consent standpoint by the end. Anyway, ask questions on the app. We're happy to talk more about this. We're represented by WiseGuyz here, so they can answer questions to the program, and then Carolyn and I can get the more kind of methodological questions that I glossed over, and this will hopefully be a publication very soon. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Rachel. All right. Okay, and I'm going to welcome our next presenters, the final presenters for today, this morning, Suchira Banerjee and Ragita Mazawi, Resilient Families Project, Trauma-Informed Parenting.
Thank you. Sure. Thanks. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ragita Mazawi. I'm a Senior Manager of Clinical Services at Catholic Family Services, Peel Dufferin. And I have my supervisor and our director, Suchira Banerjee, Director of Clinical Programs at CFSPD. So CFSPD, we're a family service agency that offers counseling and domestic violence prevention intervention programs for all members of the family. We are the lead agency for the HEAL Network, which is a network of 20 community partners responding to the needs of moms and children who experience domestic violence. So that's the child witness programming that different agencies offer. And then the Resilient Families Project falls under the HEAL Network. The seed for this project was planted in 2019 when we did a revisioning of the HEAL Network, and we identified that we were working in a stressed, traumatized sector, the VAW sector, with stressed and tired and under-resourced staff. So when the opportunity came to apply for the funding, we did. We wanted to come from a preventative lens, 2 pillars, developing, implementing, and piloting trauma-informed parenting workshops for parents who have experienced domestic violence, and developing and training staff on trauma-informed systems of care for all our community partners who work with the families we work with. There was evaluation surveys that we collected, and we brought some of the results today. And the project is November to November, so we're ending next month. So the 2 pillars are, as I said, developing the trauma-informed workshops for parents, and then developing the training for the staff within our community partners, and then some. because what we found is that we didn't realize how big the appetite was for such program and project in our community in Peel. And the reason being is that we also infused it or informed it by culturally appropriate lens, by seeking the help of our partners on informing the curriculum development as well. So T.E.A.R is going to take us through deliverables.
I'm not a mic person, so, Regina knows that. That's why she hesitated to give me the mic. So the project deliverables, I'm not going to go through all of them, but a few things to highlight. Just want to give a disclaimer here that some of the data that you see up here is a little bit incomplete because we had to submit the presentation by July. But as Regina said, the project is still ongoing. So we have collected and we have some updated data that I'm going to be sharing right now. So when we submitted the project proposal to OTF, it was clear to us that we need to develop a curriculum for trauma-informed parenting, which is culturally nimble, which is actually educated with trauma-informed principles. So some of the deliverables were clearly developing that curriculum. And because we are a network of 20 partners, we had support from our ethno-specific partners to review the curriculum content to make sure that it was right for the demographics in Peel. If people in the room know, if you live in Peel or around Peel, you'll know that Peel is close to the airport in Toronto, so highly diverse. A high percentage of newcomers and immigrant communities live in this region. A lot of communities that live in the region are marginalized in many, many ways, whether it's cultural marginalization, ethnic marginalization, financial marginalization. So we had to take that into consideration when we developed the curriculum. Also, families in Peel are intergenerational. So it couldn't be based on, Eurocentric single nuclear family systems. We had to think of families in an intergenerational fashion. So in total, though you see the data here of what we committed, we actually exceeded it because of the appetite that the community presented. So we actually ended up doing 7 workshops between the project period from May to September. We committed to actually offering these trauma-informed parenting workshops to 60 parents, but we ended up having 158 participants, which included grandparents, uncles, aunts. Some of our workshops had social workers who were working with children sit in them to learn about trauma-informed parenting. We also committed under the project that we will do 2 workshops with our partners on trauma-informed systems of care. We have ended up doing 5 workshops. And we have had around 120 staff members, which includes leaders, senior leaders, frontline staff attend these workshops. The interesting part is that many of our trauma-informed parenting workshops actually happened in partner locations, where partner agencies provided us with staff to co-facilitate these workshops. We also did the trauma-informed service care, like systems of care training at partner locations, where entire teams were sitting and learning about it. I'm going to skip that. So the methodology, I'm going to quickly go over it before I hand it to Regina for the results. So for the trauma-informed parenting workshops, we did a series of 4 weekly workshops. 4 weekly workshops of 120 minutes. And actually, you take over because I want you to show the results.
Yes, just quickly. As you see, they were 2 minutes. We put limits on how many people attended. Sometimes we went over them. We were flexible. You can get in touch with us if you need to know what we covered, the topics. But we wanted to show this. So this just shows the percentage of participants in each level of knowledge. 1, I know nothing, to 5, I know a lot. So before, they were like, you'll see 8% of participants knew nothing, but post, nobody knew nothing. People moved either to level 2, 3, 4, or 5. So as you can see, at the end, we had 48% of participants at level 4 and 32% at level 5. So this is for the trauma-informed parenting. And I'll just finish with a quote from one of the participants, if I can find it. Time is up. It's okay. You can come and connect with us if you like. We can share.
Oh, sorry, Mike and I don't go well. So we are going to have a knowledge exchange, which will be where we are going to present the entire project with its evaluation results. We'll definitely have a virtual option for people to attend across the province. So if you're interested, please reach out to Regina and me, and we can send you the invite if you share your email. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you so much to all of the presenters. It's not an easy exercise to do a presentation like that in 7 minutes and all of that really rich information. So this session is going to end at noon. And we did get a few questions that were submitted in the Event Mobi app. So here I am, continuing to encourage you. If you have some questions, submit them in the Event Mobi app. There'll be other opportunities that you can also connect with the speakers from today. So there are 2 questions that I'm going to have an opportunity to ask our speakers. This one's for Amanda and Claire. So I'm just going to remind folks, Amanda and Claire from Your Way Forward, correct? Can you speak more to what could be possible with growing this interdisciplinary approach through Ontario? I'd love to see better coordination between social work and legal services in my community. So go ahead, Amanda.
Thank you. Wild word choice for me. What could be possible? I'm a real pie in the sky guy, so anything and everything. But I'm going to try and keep it brief here. I think a lot of the success we've had in the interdisciplinary work has been rooted in our relationships. So in my dream world, we have legal education in social work post-secondary and social work education in post-secondary legal, so we can understand each other's professions and the ways in which we can collaborate together. Looking at some of the successes we've had in our community so far, it has been rooted in the relationships that Claire and I as individuals, that our clinic has already built, so that we have professionals in our community who trust us and understand that when I'm saying, hey, this risk assessment tool is validated and your judge may want to hear this, they trust me enough to think that this is a good idea. I think a really key piece is finding champions within your community. So LAW in our community has always been the champion in this interdisciplinary approach, but we have worked really hard to find a single champion in the Crown's office who helped to open the door for all the other Crowns, and 2 or 3 family lawyers who are frankly know me quite well. My background's in child protection. So we've had many disagreements in the past, but they were willing to come to the table with me and see what could be possible with the use of risk assessments and how we can support the people. So I think so much is rooted in that relationship and that trust and just finding a couple of champions. And if I can make any suggestions, if anybody in your community knows a judge on the bench who is willing to try something new, perhaps maybe has done some child protection court, so understands the role a social work can play within the law, those are the people who are really going to push that change in the legal system, because it often comes from the bench down.
Amanda. All right, just give me a moment here and I'll get to our next question. So there's a question that's specific for Alicia. I think you mentioned that you provide support Ontario-wide, but you have offices with specific geographic jurisdictions. Can you explain what support is available for Ontario residents outside your geographic areas? Yeah, great.
Hi, hello. Alicia just stepped out. So Justice for Children and Youth and about 15 other Ontario legal clinics have provincial mandates. You can check out the Legal Aid Ontario website to see all the specialty clinics across the province. In terms of Your Way Forward, we do only provide these dedicated services to survivors in those 9 clinics. However, all legal clinics are serving survivors in housing issues, in social assistance issues, immigration. Depending on the clinic, they offer different areas of law. So although these dedicated resources exist in our 9 clinics, all legal clinics across the province are supporting survivors They just don't have these additional dedicated resources.
Very much. And there is a question here for Kate. I'm wondering if the safety assessment and risk management toolkit and screening questions you spoke about is available publicly anywhere.
Thank you for your question. Is this on? Okay. Okay.
We can try. This one seems louder.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. No, it is not currently available to the public. We are working on piloting it, which we expect to be done within the next few months. And then from there, it will be more widely available. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So those are the questions that were submitted. Again, a big thank you to all of our presenters for sharing all of the incredible work that you're doing. And just a quick note that lunch will be served. I had a clicker that was just going to say lunch on here, but lunch will be served here. And I have a little note for you. So lunch is being served. Buffet lines will be set up in the International Foyer, and you're welcome to eat in international ballrooms, B, C, or any of the other meeting rooms that have tables. All right. Thank you for joining us today. So we're going to start then with our first speaker, welcoming Margaret McPherson on the topic, the Wildflower Project toward equity-oriented care with women 55 plus who experience GBV.
Excellent. Thank you, Margarita. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I told myself I've never done a 7-minute presentation before, and I'm not going to talk like I got to get them all in and, so we're going to be chill about this. I'm not going to be able to tell you everything. But I started to think about what do I want to tell you about this project that's most important. So I am a research associate at the Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children at Western. But I also do a lot of work with the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. And that's where this project is housed. And I think the important thing to start with is how really it's meant to appeal to everyone. The question is, do you serve older women? Have they experienced gender-based violence? So it's not just for any particular sector. It's really, for everybody. And I think it's a bit appalling that in Canada, there are really no dedicated services for older women, people who have experienced gender-based violence. And this is due in part to social ageism and structural gender-based violence is how I would say, the systemic way in which women are penalized across the whole of their lives. And so at the end of their lives, after maybe they've worked a whole lifetime in care work, especially unpaid care work, they don't have pensions or benefits and can find themselves in situations where they're dependent upon the person with the money to look after them. It's true that as we age, we become less visible and valued in an ageist society. And, the specific needs of older people go unaddressed. So that's what the Wildflower, I call it the Wildflower Way. That's kind of where we started, was we need something to really be talking to everyone. I think we also come from a pretty significant evidence base that says really inquests, inquiries, death reviews have said for many years, we need to teach people in all sectors how to recognize warning signs, indications of escalating risk, how to respond safely and effectively, and where to refer to find support in the community. Recognize, respond, refer. It's not particular to any sector. We all need to learn these things. The other important thing I would say is that this whole project has been inspired by the final report of the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, Reclaiming Power and Place, and that whole section that talks about establish a new framework. I think it is a vision for how we need to be different and in the work And the priority is on relationships, prioritizing relationships, the leadership of Indigenous women, older Indigenous women, at the level of the encounter. That is the really powerful part, is that it says there is a transformational potential in every exchange. Every time you are with someone, you have the ability to do something meaningful. And if you're prioritizing the relationship, it's about making the connection, seeing the person as the amazing person that they are, and then doing whatever you can from where you are in the system to make the system work for this person. So when we talk about person-centered, survivor-centered, however we use that, it's very abstract language. I want to make it a lot more particular. I want to say this person-led, so that we're also flipping it, right? We're talking about power and mutuality in the relationship in serious ways. So this work has been inspired by that call to develop a new framework. And so the pieces that we've put together, I guess this is kind of like my theory of change. If we focus on this person who's right in front of me, it asks for things from you that, when you're absorbed into, recorded into business model systems that would just have you process people along an assembly line of services, what are your strategies for, what are the things you do to connect with people? I think these are really important skills that we want to actually elevate. So if we focus on this person, oh, really? Okay. Then we disrupt. Then we disrupt the rigid systems. So we called it, I'm not reading any of that. You can read that if you want. But it is this idea about if we do this, then this could happen. If we prioritize relationships and this person, it asks for things from me. So the Wildflower Way is a series of resources that are meant to support you in that work, so that no matter where you are in the system, in your process of doing equity work, this is for developing a way of working that prioritizes the people that we're working with and respects them in terms of what they have to offer to the conversation. So trauma and violence-informed principles are the way to operationalize, I think, that framework, the call for a new framework. Because if you practice those principles, if you integrate them into your own practice and then integrate them into your organization, we can't just work at the individual level. That's what makes trauma and violence-informed principles different than trauma-informed. We're talking about structural violence, systemic violence. Our organizations have to be involved too. So there's a guide, and then there's tools. We have a gender-based violence primer that looks at sort of gender-based violence and older women's experiences more specifically. There's an organizational assessment and a self-reflection tool. How well are the trauma and violence-informed principles integrated into your practice? Because we can't just talk about these things. We actually do have to figure out how to be the change that we all want to see. I think we're a lot more powerful than we think we are if we took our work seriously, and the idea that small things you do can make a big difference. Think about what they are. Ta-da!
Thank you, Margaret. I liked your ta-da at the end. Next up, I'd like to invite Katie Horton with the topic Adapting Taking Pride, Lessons from Implementing a Program for 2S LGBTQ+ Youth to Improve Healthy Relationships and Reduce Dating Violence.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. On your program, you'll see a bunch of other names, which is my wonderful team, and I was the one elected to come, so you're stuck with me for the next 7 minutes. My name is Katie. I'm the Director of Youth Engagement at the McCurry Center Society, and I'm going to be sharing about our project, Taking Pride, and the lessons we learned implementing it. So McCreary is a BC-based nonprofit community research organization. We are committed to improving youth health through research, evaluation, and youth engaged projects. For this project, we partnered with CERAVIC, which is from the University of British Columbia, and they study the impact of stigma, discrimination, violence, and trauma on marginalized youth populations. So our work consistently shows that 2S LGBTQIA+ youth are at a heightened risk for relationship violence, and that youth do not feel skilled in navigating relationships. So Taking Pride was a 6-session relationship violence prevention program for queer and trans youth aged 13 to 18, and we co-developed it with queer and trans youth in BC. Designed to foster healthy relationship skills, the program was implemented across high school, gender and sexuality alliance groups, university queer and trans groups, and community-based youth organizations. It covered topics such as boundaries and values, effective communication, consent, working through conflict, recognizing unhealthy relationship patterns, and being a supportive friend and ally. It was originally designed to utilize a peer-led model, so we trained youth leads in the GSAs and community groups, along with their adult supports, and then they ran the workshops with their own groups with our support as needed. The evaluation was led by CERAVIC, and the youth participants took anonymous, voluntary, and confidential online surveys, both before they started any of the workshops and then at the end of the 6th workshop, as well as a follow-up survey at the end of 3 months. CERAVIC also conducted interviews with adult sponsors, youth facilitators, and university organizers to understand the barriers and successes of implementing this program. So just in terms of what was learned from the evaluation, from the surveys for pre and post among participants who took the surveys, the effectiveness of the intervention was measured using scales that assess knowledge, behavior, and attitude change towards dating violence. The pre-post analysis found modestly significant changes in the overall increase in skills for healthy relationships, and we observed a decrease in scores measuring the frequency of unhealthy behavior. Overall, results provided positive insights into how Taking Pride significantly contributed to fostering healthy relationships. A major barrier, of course, in conducting surveys was the attrition in the post surveys. We had a hard time getting youth to fill out the surveys at the end of the workshops and the 3-month survey. However, we used increased reminders, a lot of reminders, and through various channels like their adult supports and social media and kind of any way we could get them to do it. And then reviewing the interviews, there was a wide consensus that the program was very important as it filled a space not usually available to young queer and trans people who need relationship advice and guidance. And a big challenge identified through the interviews was the need to adjust the length of the workshops and the curriculum content so that the content could fit in the time available for the group. And we also needed to improve the university curriculum so that it spoke more to the level of the experience of university students. So I was involved with this project from the very beginning, so I could talk to you endlessly about all the things that we learned, but because we only have 7 minutes, I will contain myself. So the peer-led model was our original vision for these workshops, and it did have some success, but we did encounter limitations due to student turnover, which then required sort of repeated cycles of training and support. One of the big lessons we learned was the importance of having that really engaged adult support. So while the idea was the youth to sort of lead and host discussions, we really needed that adult support to be on board. And the ones that were the most successful was where we had that really engaged adult support. Another big lesson was about time. So the workshops were intended to be completed within a lunch hour at a school, but due to the varied sort of lunch hours at schools across the province, it was hard to ensure that there was actually time for skill building and repetition to really get at that sort of behavior change that we were hoping to achieve. Many groups ended up doing the workshops in after-school sessions instead. And it was also hard to find youth who had the time to commit to the facilitator training before the workshops even started. During COVID, we ended up adapting the workshops for online delivery and took on the burden of facilitating the workshops ourselves. So as things gradually kind of went back in person, we continued to have trouble with recruitment, particularly school groups. We heard from many sponsor teachers and adults that while they were interested in what we were doing and they thought it was really good, they just didn't have the capacity as teachers and sponsor teachers to take on sort of supporting the youth. So given there was interest, but not capacity, we ended up deciding to facilitate ourselves in person for a few groups. And this worked well and led to repeat invitations to do the workshops in schools. And so without being able to adapt our plan, we would have definitely engaged with less students overall, which underscores the importance of flexibility and co-creation in sustaining meaningful youth and community engagement. And then just quickly from expression of interest from the workshops from first and second year university students, we got approval to adapt the content we developed for high school for first and second year university students. So we worked with queer and trans first and second year university students. And mainly what changed was some of the scenarios and situations that were discussed is obviously there's a bit more nuance in first and second year university students with substances being legal, et cetera, et cetera. It was easier to find time with university student leads to do the training, as often they have more flexibility in their schedules. So that was a little bit better. And where we saw the most success was where the student lead was a third or fourth year student that was facilitating for a first or second year group of students. So, in conclusion, despite our best, very, very best intentions for model fidelity, we ended up with a few different iterations of this project, which I think speaks to the necessity of being able to adapt your plans to the needs of the people it's meant to benefit. This project really became about how can we best suit this project to the capacity and need of the group. And I think the feedback that we received as a result really speaks to the positive of taking that approach. Did that make academic evaluation challenging? Absolutely. Did we manage to interact with more youth as a result? 100%. So I think that in spite its many challenges, Taking Pride intervention filled a critical gap in healthy relationship education specifically designed for queer and trans youth. And I hope that the content that we've developed can be used by educators and community organizations. We have made the workshops available now because this project is over. So the workshops are all available on the Saravik and the McCurry website, which are on the screen. And I'm happy to chat about this. Thank you for listening.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie. Next, I'd like to welcome Dylan Dodson with the topic, The Violence Link, addressing the intersection of animal abuse and human violence.
Would you like to use the handheld? Or do you want, there's also this one, but we just kind of, yeah. What do you think? I think this one just.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So unlike my predecessors, I'm not going to be calm and grounded. I'm going to take you on a ride. So strap in. When my slide, how do I get my, over? Oh boy, we're already off to a start. Okay, so my name is Dylan. I am a registered social worker. I've been practicing in Ontario for about 20 years, mostly in human shelters. I forayed from human shelters and gender-based violence into animal welfare, and I've been working at Toronto Humane Society for about 5 years. Much of our work at Toronto Humane Society, we're probably best known for being a shelter, a place that you either go to relinquish your animal or a place to come and find a new pet. But what we really recognize, like every other system, is that we need to be looking at prevention and early intervention, and we are. So some of the ways that we're looking at that is a lot of our community-based programs that I'm happy to chat with you about at another venture, but pet safekeeping programs, safety planning related to family violence, pet food banks, etc. What I'm going to talk with you about today is the violence link. Has anybody heard of the violence link before by way of hands? Oh, I adore you all. This is fabulous. Okay, so thank you. As we know, violence doesn't happen in silos. It leaves patterns, it leaves marks, it leaves warnings, right? And it's whether or not we're looking at those warnings, looking for those warnings, seeing the things, the signs that are there. And one of the things that we know is that animals in Canada are members of family. And so these are beings that are living behind our doors that can tell us so much about what is really happening inside those walls. So what we're going to talk about really quickly is the violence link today. We're going to talk about how animal cruelty can be a red flag for other forms of abuse that are happening in the home, and consider a few practical strategies. We're going to try to do that in probably 6 minutes at this point. So let's go. All right. So sorry, oh my gosh, there's so much to juggle. I need 8 hands. Okay, so in Canada, we know that more homes have pets than children. There's about 28 million pets in Canada compared to about 11 million children. We know that the rate of pet ownership is increasing in huge, huge numbers. We know that people really are treating their pets like family, celebrate birthdays, anybody in the room dressing their pet up for Halloween. I am, my corgi's a banana. Weird, but true, right? So we do all kinds of wacky things with our pets. More of us want to stay actually home. Research says we want to stay home with our pets rather than go to to decline social invitations. Have I done it? Yes. And do I love that excuse? Yes. But what we know is that pets can provide valuable insights about our and our clients' attachments, right? So how they attach to their animal, what role their animal plays in their family dynamic is remarkable information. If we think about clients that have grown up in homes where there has been early violence, we know the propensity attached to attachment theory and avoidant attachment. When people have been unsafe and unkind, animals are typically there. They are the consistent space to both receive and to give love, care, compassion, and a secure base. What happens is that when there are fractures in that relationship, while we know that animals can be health promoting, we also know that when there's fractures, that this can be a huge source of distress for our clients and for ourselves. And so this is something that we can really pay attention to because animals break down our natural defenses, right? Anybody have pictures of their animals on their phones? Are you dying to tell me about them? Are you waiting to find me out in the hall afterwards and tell me about the story you have with your animal? I will listen. I will be happy to listen. But yes, this is true of our animals, of our clients as well, right? What we know is that, the bond between guardians and animals is typically one of care and mutual respect and love and adoration and affect and mutual affection. However, abuse fractures this bond. Interpersonal violence and animal abuse rarely occur in isolation, and there's substantial evidence linking animal abuse to broader patterns of violence. So not just interpersonal violence, 3 minutes. If I don't see you, does that mean you don't exist? Okay. In the context of interpersonal violence, child abuse, and of course, elder abuse, but also more general forms of criminality as well. So we know research has confirmed that intentional harm caused to animals is both a predictor of and an indicator of future violence. And we know that when there is animal abuse, that it's a sign of potential harm to come, as well as a crime that's actively happening in that moment. Studies also show that individuals who harm animals are more likely to engage in more severe and more violent forms of animal abuse. And there's a documented link between bestiality and child sexual abuse, with 80% of Canadian individuals that have been charged with bestiality being having both child and animal victim survivors. Okay. Thank you. I can't do two things at one time. So folks are probably familiar with the power and control wheel. This has now been adapted by the National Link Coalition to speak to how animals can be used as tactics and control methods. Some of the examples, because it might be small on there, but intentional harming to animals, threatening animals, denying food or water, basic tenets of life. They might harm an animal and then refuse veterinary care. Animals are typically given as a gift when something has gone really, really south, and then it's used as an additional control mechanism, right? We know that aggressors will disappear animals. There's nothing scarier, right, than an animal just having disappeared. So we know that animal maltreatment can deeply impact survivors' decisions. And let's be real clear that this is not for indifference. This is because of moral, ethical responsibility and care for that animal. Because of the deep emotional bonds that people have with their animals, sometimes prioritizing their animal's safety. That didn't go. Oh, this is so complicated. Okay, we know that our Canadian sisters in this world are experiencing difficulties when they do choose to leave. Having an animal makes that more complicated. So we know that women will, based on our stats, that women are experiencing animal maltreatment at very, very, very high rates. We know that there is a true elevation of harm and threat to animals, and the likelihood that the animal will be killed in that home is incredibly high for these families. Many will return home if they don't have somewhere for their animals to go. There's also huge impact on children, right? When children have either witnessed or seen violence happen in the home, that this is going to lay foundations for them. It can have hugely detrimental impacts that I won't have time to detail today, but in my last, time is up. Okay, really quickly, what are the things that you can do as a service provider? Really quickly, some of the things that you can think about is how can you work directly with your clients? What are the assessments? What questions do you have in your assessments or in your safety planning that are specifically targeted to the animal? Are you asking about, do you have any pets? Is your pet helpful to you? Are there any stressors that your pet is experiencing right now that are making you really, really concerned? The other thing that I want to raise really quickly is that the Ontario Association of CISs do not have any systematic way of asking about or measuring animal violence. Similarly, the animal welfare system that investigates animal cruelty against animals also has no systemic method of exploring the presence of child or other forms of family violence. So the systems are not currently talking, and it's for all of us to figure out how we can make that happen so that either party is not missing those signs. My very last slide, and I know I'm taking everybody else's time, this is my contact information. You may also be interested in the International Association of Veterinary Social Workers. There's a whole host of us that are doing this kind of work, so please come join us, as well as we also have the Canadian Violence Link Coalition that I'm the co-chair of, and if you are interested in joining, please, please, please do. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Great. Thank you so much, Dylan. All right. Now I'd like to welcome Angel Ross with the topic, Pets Can Be Victims Too, One Shelter's Solution for Providing Safety for a Survivor's Animals. There.
It's kind of, I'll try and eat it. And here. Okay. Okay. So, actually, Dylan stole a little chunk of what I was going to share with you, so you get to hear it twice. Just make sure you really know it. So I'm the program manager at Genesis House, which is a domestic violence crisis shelter in rural southern Manitoba. And our 16-bed shelter can hold 5 women and up to 11 children at a time. Animals have always been a deep love of mine, and working in the shelter system brought me to the intersection of domestic violence and animal abuse. So while we all know that adults and children are harmed daily by abusive partners, animals are often the silent and unseen victims. Pets are considered family members, and survivors of gender-based violence don't want to leave them behind. Abusers might use the animal as a means of power and control to coerce the survivor back. Many survivors fear that the animal will be abused, neglected, given away, thrown in the street or let loose, or even deliberately maimed or killed. And there's a growing body of research studying the link between intimate partner violence and cruelty to animals. It has shown that those who abuse animals have a high likelihood of going on to abuse a human. In fact, a study conducted in the USA found that up to 86% of men that were incarcerated for IPV had abused an animal at some point in their lives. So according to a research study by the Alberta SPCA, 75% of survivors will stay with an abusive partner for fear of what will happen to the animal if they leave it behind. Another study indicated that up to 89% of those experiencing IPV say that their pets have been threatened, hurt, or killed by an abuser. 56% of survivors would not leave unless they could ensure that their pet would be safe. And these are really alarming statistics. In homes where there's violence, pets often become even more meaningful as they support their human family members with snuggles, emotional support, unconditional love, a safe and confidential listening ear, and even protection when somebody is being hurt. Is it any wonder then that survivors want to bring their animal with them when they leave? Pets are one piece of familiarity for survivors as they navigate new living situations, court processes, and copious amounts of change and uncertainty. And I have my own experience with this. So when I left with my 3 children, we were not able to bring our golden retriever to shelter with us. We tried to arrange visits with the dog when possible, but this became really difficult to navigate due to a no contact order. I was extremely worried for her because I knew that my ex was not responsible in caring for her. That really fell to me. But I had no choice. I had to leave her behind in order to protect my children. And sadly, our dog passed away 16 months later due to neglect and lack of veterinary care. This experience was the impetus for me to be part of birthing a pet safe program at the shelter that I work in. The need for a pet program was identified many, many years ago. A woman had come into shelter over the weekend and she brought her dog along due to concerns for its safety. So we kept it in the garage and the fenced backyard for the weekend. And on Monday, when the director came in, the staff was told that the animal could not stay. So the woman had no other place for her dog. So due to this, she left the shelter and she had to return to her abusive situation. It was 8 years before staff heard from her again, and she never entered residential services after that experience. So given what research has shown, we decided to find a way to address the issue. The building that Genesis House occupies is owned by Manitoba Housing, and so we can't make accommodations within our shelter in order to have pets stay with their families. So we got creative. We had an existing shed that was being used to store outdoor toys, so we repurposed it as a temporary holding space for the animals. A group of middle schoolers did some fundraising, and we were able to get the shed insulated and a window added for ventilation. We collected donations and we did some fundraising to outfit the space with crates, a litter box, a space heater, and a fan. Next, we contacted our vet office and entered into an agreement that animals coming into the shelter could receive any needed vaccinations and be spayed or neutered. Provision of emergency medical care was also agreed to if the animal was in need or had suffered abuse. After these pieces were in place, we approached a boarding facility to ask whether they would partner with us and offer boarding at a reduced rate for any dogs or cats that came into shelter. We also added questions about pets to our crisis line form so we could help survivors plan for their pet safety before they came into shelter. And then we were ready to welcome our first pet guest. The first dog that came our way came in the evening. Thanks. So we housed her in our pet shed overnight. And the next day she was moved to the boarding facility and her owner was able to visit her there and get her settled. The dog gave birth to 10 puppies a few days later. As we continued with our Pet Safe program, we discovered other challenges, such as former clients dropping their dogs off, saying they were staying at the shelter and not paying the bill. We also had a situation where a member of the public took their animal to the boarding facility, recognized the survivor's dog, notified the survivor's abuser, and then the abuser went to the facility to try to regain control of the animal. So Genesis House realized that using a boarding facility was not ideal for ensuring safety in a small community. So back to the drawing board we went. We met with our local Humane Society to draw up agreements for foster-based care. So now when a survivor arrives at shelter, the Humane Society contacts their network to find a previously approved volunteer to provide short-term foster care in their home. To protect confidentiality, the foster is not provided with the owner's name, and the owner can't visit their pet while in care. But the foster home does send regular updates and photos, which the Humane Society sends to us, and then we send on to the survivor. So with this system, we had no further incidents of pets being recognized and at risk, nor received any surprise boarding bills. But unfortunately, this still isn't the best solution for keeping families together. Although all the parties are safe, survivors, their children, and the animals experience significant distress being separated in unfamiliar spaces. So we got creative again. This past spring, Women's Shelters Canada offered grants for pet sheltering spaces. We applied with the aim to upgrade our temporary holding space into something capable of sheltering more than one animal at a time and for the entirety of a survivor's stay. We were approved, and so with this grant, we are hoping that the animals can remain comfortable in any weather by having kennels and crates built up the wall, having heat and air conditioning put in, and if there's any money left after this, we want to put a bench in with some pillows and comfortable seating so people can visit with their animals. In this way, we can avoid separating families and their pets, preserve their bond, and create safety for all. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share about an initiative that's really important to me, and I encourage you to consider how you might be creative with your own spaces to help provide safety, even temporarily, for companion animals of the survivors that you work with. In Manitoba, our gender-based violence funding now provides finances for costs related to pets, such as fees for a boarding facility if cost-free options have been explored and are not able to meet the need. So look into what might be available in your province or territory, and don't be afraid to team up with other services to help support the families you work with. Thanks.
Thank you so much to Angel. Next up, I'd like to welcome Deborah Sinclair with the topic, a living, you know what? Sorry for with the topic A Living History, How the Experiences of Early Activists Shaped the Violence Against Women Movement in Ontario, a case study.
Yes, that's not very good. All right, can you move
And
this
I
up
can
so
move your
slides if you'd like. Oh, that would be wonderful. Okay. Hi, is this on? Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deborah Sinclair. And today I'd like to share some key insights from my doctoral research, which was the violence. I did a case study of the violence against women movement, really the story of the movement in Ontario from 1973 to 2018. It was a 10-year journey on my part. I graduated when I was 68. I'm now 74. It's possible to go on and on and on in this work. I have 47 years now in the work, in the movement. This study looks at a grassroots activism and how that grew into a movement. And then over time, as many of us know, it's become called a sector. And I looked at the difference between a movement and a sector. So in the next few minutes, and I'm a trauma therapist, that woman who is passing out my handouts right now, she would give anybody a panic attack. 1 minute, 2 minutes, time's up. I'm like Margaret, I will skip slides. So I'd like to talk about the stories of the women and the lessons we can draw for the future. And that one-page handout you're getting will give you access to the thesis. I hear it's fairly readable. I just haven't decided if I'll turn it into a lay book yet, so maybe you can help me understand that. Stay in touch. And some lessons for the future. Next slide. One of the interests I always had an interest in research in my career, even though I did frontline therapeutic work and movement work. The divide between academia and the community, between academic notions and how we live our experience on the front line. This has been a passion project for me. As an intersectional feminist and activist, the disconnect felt personal. So my desire took me 6 years to land on this topic. I had so many ideas, like many of us, we could research. I wanted to ensure that seasoned activists' knowledge would be honored, and treated as expertise, not as anecdotal. And when I say expertise, I do not mean academic credentials, although someone could have that. That does not mean that one has experience, expertise, and lived experience. So next slide, please. Oh, French. I don't do French, despite my 4 Francophone grandchildren who say, yeah, you've got to learn. That's my next project. Can you go back one? I may have skipped. Oh, I've skipped one. The women who built the movement. 22 amazing, seasoned, brilliant interviewers, activists, organizers, trailblazers. They worked in kitchens, shelters, courtrooms, and protests. Remember, this was 1973, first shelter in the country. Was Interval House and Vancouver Transition House, I think. We had nothing. Volunteer work, volunteer hours, no funding, no recognition, no established language, just urgency, care, and many lived experience. They built these organizations, they challenged systems, and they supported one another. Their courage created the foundation of the VAW movement. I know many of you were not born. As one of my youngest participants, who was 40-something when I said I started, she said, "What year did you start, Deborah?" "Oh, I think it was around 71, 72. And she smiled. I said, "Why are you smiling?" "I wasn't born then." So next slide, please. See if I'm on the right track. I am. So why did I focus on activists as a marginalized voice? I loved this quote, but then grassroots organizers rarely receive the acknowledgement they deserve. You deserve. They're too daring, too threatening to the status quo. Oh my God, 3 minutes. I'll let you read this slide. Too daring, too threatening. I think this captures the experience of activists in a very real way. I think they hold many critical lessons for us for the future, and you'll see some of their wisdom captured in that one-page handout. Their stories are filled with lots of victories, tensions, fatigue, and hope. Hope was endless. They didn't just create services, they created a legacy and a roadmap for many of us to follow. Intersectional, next slide, please. Skip that one. Oh, skip that one. I don't know why these got into, are we going backwards? No. Oh my God, this is so mind-boggling. Intersectionality, we got it. We talked about intersectionality, and I think the picture is going around, isn't it? Maybe just pass it around. These are my beautiful, wonderful, brilliant participants, a very diverse group, very seasoned. And I'll put it back here if any of you want to look at it at the break. One of the strongest themes throughout was intersectionality, not as theory, but as a lived necessity, a lived reality. They embraced diversity. They recognized how multiple forms of oppression overlap. I worked on 7 different theories of feminism. I can't go into all of them. Black feminism, indigenous feminism, queer, you name it. The most interesting for me as a white woman was critical whiteness studies, which I'd never heard of in my life, I'll tell you, but I learned. And I love it. Centering marginalized voices strengthens the movement. That was a theme throughout. One more, please. And then the big pressing question, are we a movement or are we a sector? Movements inspire, sectors manage. Did we need a sector? Did we need service building? Of course. Is that sufficient? Absolutely not. Their voices remind us that this is a calling, not a job, a living history that still unfolds. Typically, a movement can take anywhere to 100 to 500 years, as my Indigenous sisters and brothers tell me, probably even longer in terms of colonial violence. So we're about, 40, 50 years in to this cycle. The activists I spoke with want to reclaim that sense of movement, a collective vision, action, even as we provide vital services. And you'll see through all of these presentations that it's one piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole puzzle. So remember that. It's not the whole puzzle. It's not the elephant. It's the tail. It's the nose. It's the leg. So if I had a dream before I die, I'd have everybody take 20% of their work to be political work, movement work, because ultimately, and there's studies to prove this. Next slide, please. There's studies to prove this. The last study I looked at 70 countries around the globe, and what do you think was the most critical piece of work that created change with government, with policy, with practices in all the different professions and in our work? What do you think it was? An independent, autonomous, intersectional feminist movement in almost all of those countries. So, are you doing inspiring work? Absolutely. I close with this side. This is actually Milford House in Nova Scotia for any of you East Coasters. One of my favorite go-to places. Because the activists themselves talk about self-care as essential. Oh, I still have 3 minutes. Time is up. Oh, dear. Okay, just remember, they talked about if we don't do self-care, collective care, the movement implodes. We become harmful to ourselves and to one another, and many of us have had that experience over the years. So remember, you're a precious resource. We need you. The work is demanding. It's caring for ourselves that will sustain the movement. We're not going away. We're marathon runners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Deborah. All right. I'd like to welcome our next speakers, Lisa Sura, Alyssa Roger, and Vanessa Rankin, with the topic Disrupting the Cycle, Collaborating for Change in IPV and Child Welfare.
Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. Here, take this one. So okay.
We're good. Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We're really pleased to be with you here today to talk about the Safe at Home project. This is a collaborative initiative that brings together child welfare and community-based partners to address the intersections of IPV and child protection. My name is Vanessa, and I'm presenting today alongside my colleagues Lisa and Alyssa. And together, in this short amount of time, we are going to attempt to walk you through the Safe at Home project, which is very complex, and try to identify how we're working across sectors to collaborate and disrupt the cycle of IPV. Okay, we're good. So wanted to share with you two statistics that you're probably aware of, but want to hammer them home. Exposure to intimate partner violence remains the leading cause of child welfare investigations in Canada. And the child welfare sector is often one of the first sectors to be made aware of the presence of violence in a home and in an intimate partnership. So the Safe at Home project is a 5-year project led in collaboration with the Children's Aid Foundation of Canada, the Child Development Institute, Changing Ways, and Caring Dads. And together we have 12 delivery partners spanning child welfare and the community-based sector across Manitoba and Ontario. And we're all working together to collaborate for change to disrupt the cycle. So at its core, Safe at Home aims to empower child welfare agencies and community-based organizations to deliver scalable, culturally responsive, and evidence-based services for young children and families experiencing IPV. It's really about improving outcomes for children and families, strengthening parent-child relationships, and reducing intimate partner violence. We've also evolved our work to be uniquely focused on building stronger cross-sector collaboration between child welfare agencies and community-based organizations and distilling our learning from this. And finally, we're working to identify opportunities for systems change so these supports, methods for collaboration, and the knowledge we're building can be sustained and shared.
Okay, so developed by Child Development Institute in partnership with the Children's Aid Society of Toronto, the Mothers in Mind Child Protection Collaboration Model was developed as an adaptation of Mothers in Mind, a program that we've been running for a number of years. And it was developed to specifically support mothers who have experienced intimate partner violence, they're parenting infants and toddlers, and they're involved with child protection because of the intimate partner violence they've experienced. The model brings together community mental health and child protection to support moms in strengthening their well-being, in exploring their the impact trauma has had on their parenting. Are we double? Is this better? Oh boy, that was stressful. All right. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the model brings together community mental health, child protection to support moms in well-being, exploring the impact of trauma on their parenting, and also gaining strategies around sensitively responding to their little ones. The focus is on connection, collaboration, self-care. It highlights moms' strengths, their strengths, their resilience, and their resistance. And it strives to create opportunities where moms can make progress on their child protection service plan while supporting the healthy development of their little one. And I'll pass it to Alyssa.
Yeah, so the other exciting part of the Safe at Home project is the Caring Dads programming. So Caring Dads is an evidence-based group program for fathers who have caused harm in their families or are at risk of causing harm. It was developed in the early 2000s by Dr. Katrina Scott, the academic director at CREVAC. So we're bringing that knowledge together and really bridging the crucial pieces of the child protection system. So child welfare agencies, fathers who have caused harm. There's mother contact and provisions being followed for mothers and victim survivors, and the children as well as justice partners too. So this is really one of the first programs of its kind to bridge those different sectors and those kind of silos together to ensure that we are placing accountability, compassionate accountability on fathers who have caused harm. So it's incredible to see the many delivery partners kind of doing that incredible work with the expertise of VAW backgrounds, child welfare backgrounds to engage fathers.
Okay. So recognizing that Indigenous children and families require tailored, culturally sensitive approaches, Indigenous-led child protection agencies have adapted the Caring Dads program or Mothers in Mind, or have also developed their own programming as a part of the Safe at Home project. Native Child and Family Services of Toronto, maybe it's me. Native Child and Family Services of Toronto has been adapting Mothers in Mind and has been focusing on building safety and community wrapped in Indigenous culture to the urban Indigenous population of Toronto. They wanted to share a few things with you about their work. At the heart of their work are the Nonoshes or aunties that begin by creating comfort and trust with mothers and their young children, because relationships always come first. Families' unique nations and identities are honored through language, teaching, songs, sacred medicines, and the guidance of knowledge keepers. Sessions begin and end in a good way, and throughout the program, families receive bundles with medicines, Indigenous children's storybooks that support parenting and connection to culture. Support doesn't stop at the group. Families receive flexible in-home parenting support before the group, during the group, and after the group. They're invited to different programming within their agencies, including counseling and early years programming. And their evaluation also reflects their culture. Feedback is gathered through storytelling and quilt making and conversation circles. Each family contributes to a quilt and takes a piece home, symbolizing their connection to something bigger. The greatest successes are in the relationships, families encouraging one another, mothers connecting with children, culture, and community, and participants returning as mentors.
I don't know. Okay, I see our time is up. We wanted to talk with you a little bit about the systems change work that's happening inside this project, which wasn't one of the primary elements, but has emerged in the cross-sectoral work. But you can come find us and we can explain a little bit of that if any of this is interesting to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. Okay. Thank you, Lisa, Alyssa, and Vanessa. I'm going to move this away, thinking maybe it's responsible for the static. Next up, we're going to welcome Christina DiGianni for expanding the reach of safety, introducing the Accelerated Safety Assessment and Risk Management Framework.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm Christina DiGianni, as you know. I'm the manager of community support and outreach with The Redwood, an organization in Toronto that supports survivors of gender-based violence through a multitude of services, including our emergency shelter, crisis lines, both phone and web-based, as well as our mobile outreach program, The Hub on Wheels, and we have our Women in Trades and Technology programs, among many others. So today I'm here to really talk to you about one of our newest developments and updates, our Accelerated Safety Assessment and Risk Management ASARM framework. Now, before diving into this adaptation, I really want to provide some background on its foundation, our original Safety Assessment and Risk Management framework, which was created a little over a decade ago. So the development on the SARM framework began in 2012 with the aim of exploring the best practices for supporting survivors of gender-based violence to manage and mitigate the risks that they face. Creating this framework required a deep engagement with frontline workers, survivors, and other key stakeholders. We also conducted an extensive literature review and carefully considered the recommendations of Ontario's Domestic Violence and Death Review Committee. At the outset, we were simply looking for new tools to improve our response, But what emerged was not just a tool, but an entirely new approach. This marked a critical shift from traditional concepts of risk assessment and safety planning to a more holistic process, risk management and safety assessment. The language and philosophy behind this shift are intentional and significant. The term risk management, unlike safety planning, more clearly places the responsibility and the onus for the danger being caused on the person causing harm, while emphasizing that there are strategies and protective actions available that may reduce a survivor's exposure to harm. It's a more proactive and validating response that recognizes survivors' complex realities, including systemic barriers and oppressions that they face. The aim has been to enhance survivor autonomy and tailor support to the diverse and often shifting nature of risk in their lives. Next, I'll take you through how we've evolved this work through the creation of the ASARM framework and how it's been helping us to more rapidly and effectively respond to the urgent needs of survivors. So as mentioned, the ASARM framework is an adaptation of our SARM framework. So about 2 years ago, we received some funding from Women and Gender Equity Canada, or Equality Canada, to update the SARM framework. Our initial goal was to enhance the capacity of the gender-based violence sector to assess risk and support survivors in managing the risks they face. As the project progressed, a critical gap began to surface. Increasingly, we were approached by service providers and community members outside the gender-based violence sector, requesting training and resources to better understand gender-based violence and how to effectively support survivors. These individuals were often the first point of contact for those experiencing abuse, whether through direct disclosure or through signs that raised concern. This shift revealed a significant opportunity to expand our focus beyond the GBV sector to professionals and to provide them with training and support to a broader network of community members and frontline service providers. By equipping individuals with knowledge and skills to recognize abuse, respond with empathy, and refer appropriately, we believe that we can strengthen community-based responses to gender-based violence and ensure survivors receive support they need wherever they reach out first. Oh no, what did I do? Oh, there we go. So the ASARM framework consists of 3 tools. Our safety screen snapshot, our accelerated safety assessment and risk management tool, and then our safety action plan. And they go kind of in collaboration with each other. So the safety screen snapshot is the initial step in assessing a survivor's potential risk and exposure to gender-based violence, consisting of 12 questions designed to quickly identify risk factors and signs of abuse. The first 5 questions are looking more at coercive control, emotional abuse, and controlling behaviors, and the remaining 7 questions are screening for high-risk factors and lethality to determine, helping to determine the survivor's overall level of risk and inform approaches for support and intervention. Once the safety screen snapshot is completed, the overall score is calculated and then ranked on a color-coded system to indicate the level of risk and the next steps for support. The next tool in the process is the ASARM. It's meant to be a more comprehensive tool, although condensed from our original framework, which aims to capture the critical information about the survivor situation in more detail, and is categorized into 12 sections, the majority of which focus on person-causing harm-generated risks, and the final section examines risks generated by the survivor's life circumstances. The final tool in the process is the safety action plan. The safety action plan is based on risk factors identified from the 2 questionnaires and the context of the survivor's situation. It is essential that the plan is developed directly with the survivor's input and that the plan is realistic and doable for them. During this process, you should always consider the strategies that can be used, what protective actions can be implemented, and connections and support systems available. For many survivors, forgot to move the slide. So for many survivors, their first disclosure may not be to a professional in the gender-based violence sector. It could be to their nurse, a teacher, a faith leader, or even a neighbor. And that's why it's so important that all community members are equipped with the skills to recognize signs of abuse, have knowledge of high-risk factors, screen and assess for risk sensitively and effectively, and connect survivors with the appropriate support services. An important piece of ASARM and the broader work of supporting survivors and community involves creating a space where survivors feel safe to share their experiences, The safety isn't just physical, it's emotional, psychological, it's cultural. It comes from the way we listen, the words we use, and the respect we show. We achieve this by using a survivor-centered and trauma-informed approach. This includes receiving disclosures with empathy and compassion, validating the survivor's experience and their courage speaking up, respecting their choices, decisions, and confidentiality, and always working to uphold their sense of safety and control. I'm almost done, I promise. So when survivors are met with non-judgment, dignity, and support, they're more likely to continue seeking help and to begin healing. So just to kind of close up and wrap up really quickly, every conversation, every moment of listening, every act of compassion, these are not small gestures. They are potential turning points in a survivor's life. Through ASARM, we're not just training people to recognize abuse and assess safety and risk. We're equipping them to be a supportive person towards the survivor, respond with empathy, skill, and support. At the heart of this work is a simple, powerful truth. Everyone deserves to live free from violence and to be supported with dignity when they seek help. And if you're interested in learning more, please feel free to come up and approach me or contact my project team and myself, and we'd be more than happy to support you.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. Moving along here, I'd like to welcome Jillian Cattle and Lauren Hu for Life After Impact, Rebuilding Lives After Gender-Based Violence and Concussion.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure for Jillian and I to be with you here today to share about Life After Impact, a new program offered by the Ontario Brain Injury Association. This program is designed to support adults in Ontario who have experienced gender-based violence and a brain injury, including concussion. So each year, brain injury is the leading cause of death and disability worldwide and results in many cognitive, physical, and emotional challenges that make it very difficult for people to navigate their daily lives. While the results from 2021 posted here show 115,000 concussions are diagnosed annually in Ontario, the most recent data is actually showing this is closer to 170,000, and this does not account for more severe brain injuries, injuries that are sustained through non-traumatic means, or the many people who sustain injuries each year and remain undiagnosed, whether this is because it was missed in a healthcare setting or they never sought medical care to begin with. A recent project we did at Obaya explored early experiences after concussions, shedding light on this crisis. Nearly 70 people who sustained their concussions in a variety of ways participated, and less than half sought medical attention immediately following their injury. Among those who did seek help, many of them actually sought help for another physical injury, and the physician caught the concussion at the same time. When we combine these findings with the knowledge that 1 in 3 women globally experience IPV, and up to 92% of IPV incidents include hits above the neck or strangulation, both of which can cause brain injuries, we're seeing a concerning trend. Those who experience IPV and other forms of gender-based violence are sustaining brain injuries, but they're likely not seeking medical care for diagnosis or treatment. Whether this is due to a lack of awareness or knowledge, stigma, or many other reasons, the challenges from trauma and brain injuries can be far-reaching, impacting a person's ability to navigate their daily life. For those who do receive a diagnosis and seek help, there are extremely limited services in Ontario for individuals who have experienced gender-based violence and a brain injury. At Obaya, we saw these findings and knew we had to do something to support Ontarians with this lived experience. So we started the journey to develop a new program that meets the community's needs and helps to fill this gap. The Life After Impact program is designed to be both comprehensive and flexible, empowering those who are seeking support to choose what parts of the program are most appropriate for their unique needs and goals. The program has 3 main components: an online learning program, one-on-one services with a social worker, an occupational therapist, and a vocational rehabilitation specialist, and a peer-led support group called Together We Thrive. Clients within the program can choose which parts of the program they want to engage with and can incorporate additional services as their needs and goals evolve. The online training program features both an asynchronous platform, thank you, and synchronous group sessions. The asynchronous platform is a self-paced program with 7 courses that can be accessed in any order of an individual's choosing. The topics explored in this program include an overview of gender-based violence and concussion brain injury, supporting your mental health, relationships and communication, strategies to cope and symptom management, vocational skills, financial literacy, and navigating your return to work and education. The program includes a combination of written content, videos, and interactive knowledge checkpoints. The synchronous groups are 8-week closed groups with up to 8 members each and are facilitated by an occupational therapist and a social worker. The goal of these groups is to promote an understanding of how the content covered in the asynchronous program can apply to their own lives in a safe space with others who share similar experiences. I'm now going to pass it to Jillian to talk more about the one-on-one services.
Thank you, Lauren. So in addition to our online programs, we also offer individualized support services tailored to each client's unique needs. This can include social work, occupational therapy, and/or vocational rehabilitation. These services will be offered virtually and will provide wraparound care to support each client. The social worker will provide both case coordination and mental health support. Our occupational therapist is available for consultations with clients and their current or prospective employers. They'll offer to explore strategies for managing symptoms, navigating daily activities, and addressing any setbacks that may arise during the employment process. Clients also have access to vocational rehabilitation services, which assesses their abilities, interests, and limitations. Oh, the pressure. They offer career guidance suggested for skill development and support to help clients prepare for, obtain, and maintain employment. All one-on-one services are available for up to 6 months per practitioner, and our approach is intentionally fluid. Each practitioner can tailor their supports based on the client's interests and needs at any given time, and ensuring that the services remain relevant and responsive throughout the client's journey. Clients can also choose to participate in a peer-led support group called Together We Thrive. The group was created and piloted by Karen Mason at SOAR, and we'll be implementing a similar model. Together We Thrive will run for 6 months with monthly meetings that are survivor-focused and facilitated by someone with lived experiences. Each closed group will include up to 8 members, providing a safe space to connect and to share experiences and learn from one another. The groups will also feature guest speakers, and sessions will incorporate mindfulness practices and holistic strategies to support recovery and well-being. The Life After Impact program is open to individuals who are at least 18 years old, live in Ontario, and have experienced gender-based violence, and have also sustained a concussion or brain injury. A formal diagnosis isn't required, and the brain injury doesn't need to be resulted from gender-based violence. Thank you. If you want to chat with us, you can reach us at lifeafterimpact@obaya.on.ca, or you can go to our website as well at lifeafterimpact.ca. Thank you.
I might need to take this one. Oh, it's okay. Thank you very much, Jillian and Lauren. Okay, we have 2 more presentations, so I'm going to welcome next Helena Lynn Hag, Angela Colantoni, Michael Ellis, Karen Mason, and Paul Van Dokkeler. Is everyone? It's just you. Okay. I'm like, and there's no one else. Okay.
It's all good. Oh, good luck with that. Can you take that away? Super. No, it's okay. I'll deal with the technology. Anybody who spent time with me knows never to give me the technology. I am second in here, Helena Lindhag. I am one of 5. We've come together from across the country to do something about intimate partner violence caused brain injury. I am a mix in between the previous speakers. I have a fully scripted thing to keep me to my 7 minutes, but it is a lot, so buckle up. Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here today to introduce a new project funded by Public Health of Canada that's tasked with addressing existing gaps in knowledge, training, and resources around intimate partner violence caused brain injury, or IPVBI. I'm one of the 5 up here who's come together to form a pan-Canadian collaborative for the first time. Usually we compete with each other for the funding dollars. This time we got smart and came together. We have made up a pan-Canadian team of researchers, service providers, and folks with lived experience to bring all the experts to the table. Together, we are developing a national strategy to educate Canadians on the important intersection of IPVBI and equip healthcare and social service providers, along with law enforcement personnel, because I like to make sure everybody's on the same page, with the knowledge and skills to recognize, respond, and safely support folks exposed to IPVBI. This strategy will support survivors, families, and service providers across Canada and provide a roadmap for other countries to follow. We'd like to acknowledge and thank all of the community partners involved in this project. We couldn't do this work without their support and guidance. Many of these folks make up our expert advisory committees, groups of survivors, professionals, and researchers with specific expertise in key areas that shape the work that we do. They ensure that we consider cultural safety, health equity, and trauma-informed care at every stage of the project while keeping us on target and accountable. Thank you, Lauren, for taking care of most of the content on this. We should have talked ahead of time. The key point here is that I've got 1 in 8 Canadian women who are experiencing intimate partner violence-related brain injury. They are more than likely undiagnosed, unrecognized, and unsupported. If you do the math, that's what it boils down to. And I just want to highlight, that's the same statistic as breast cancer. So for every one of you who knows someone who has had it, who has lost someone to it, you also know someone who has experienced intimate partner violence-related brain injury. So what are we doing? Our goal is to create a national IPVBI strategy built on universal access to centralized, standardized information in French and English. We are working to develop an IPVBI systems of care framework to guide frontline in a new collaborative approach to effective care for survivors. We hope to build a sustainable knowledge transfer and mobilization approach that will nurture connectivity and collaboration among and across survivors, healthcare and social service providers, researcher, and policy decision makers. We have embarked on a wide-scale knowledge and education campaign and are hard at work at creating the infrastructure to make all of this possible. The cornerstone of this approach is the newly launched Canadian Centre for Intimate Partner Violence and Brain Injury. This is the first of its kind in the world. I'm so happy I can barely stand still. A decade of my life has gone into this moment. The Canadian Centre is intended to be the online community for IPVBI, where survivors, service providers, and researchers can get the knowledge, resources, and community connection they need. It serves as a repository for all things IPVBI, up-to-date resources, tools, education, and community. It exists to inspire through education and awareness, discover through research and resources development, engage through community outreach and capacity building, and connect all of us to each other for once through a national knowledge integration and exchange network. We are currently an online space that seeks to create community and collaboration through what we call a cross-pollination approach. We're actively working to build connections between the IPV and BI worlds where survivors, healthcare workers, brain injury specialists, frontline GBV, and law enforcement work with each other in their own communities, sharing their expertise and knowledge and building a coordinated care response. The center's website has been launched at www.ipvbicenter.ca, but I'm sorry to say it is still under construction phase. I'm one person and I just don't move fast enough. I'm probably about 3 to 4 weeks away from full content for you. Eventually, we will offer online courses, research and resources, and foster interdisciplinary efforts to shine the light forward and lead the way, working together with our communities of research, advocacy, and practice to build new pathways to brighter days for survivors of IPVBI. We're happy to highlight work that you've got going on. So if you've got something that you think should be amplified, reach out. We'll make sure it gets out there. The second objective is an effort to improve public and professional knowledge and awareness of IPVBI. We are working to develop standardized online educational courses, in-person training workshops, and virtual webinars. We have also spent 6 months hunting up every resource we could find on IPVBI and assessing them. My RAs really do want out of this project at this point. Our next step is to host all of that on an online library at the center and provide you with the best options for practice, resources, and tools to assist you in your work. If the resource doesn't already exist, we will create it. Under this objective, we've also been able to add in a piece of work that is very close to my heart and that of Dr. Michael Ellis is on the team, as we work in community with Inuit partners to develop content that is context-specific in the form of education and resources for use in the North. It is an honor to be asked to assist in this way, and we both consider this one of the most important pieces of work we've been lucky enough to be able to do. In order to strengthen our efforts to achieve sustainable funding for the IPVBI field for many years to come, we are committed to building evidence, supporting promising practices and targeted interventions. We currently have plans to evaluate 2 existing programs, both of which are in British Columbia. Good shout out to that province. One is delivering social supports at the Cridge Centre for the Family in Victoria, and the other offers acute health care at the Embrace Clinic in Surrey. We welcome, again, conversations with folks like you who have something that you think we can help you with. We're here to help. That is the job of the Canadian Centre for the next 3 years. I personally would like to thank the organizers. Wait a minute. See, technology. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here and share our project. And please use this QR code to check out our webpage and sign up for our newsletter, The Beacon, to keep up to date on all things IPV happening at the center and across the country. As one of the very few researchers in the world have had the privilege to be able to focus on only IPVBI throughout my career, I am beyond excited to witness the birth of this field, to be part of the development of these new programs. Obaya, congratulations. And to be part of the development and work to ensure that it's sustainability for generations to come. We're here to help. I'm here for the rest of the day. Happy to have a drink this evening and talk about what's going on.
Thank you very much, Alina. That's exciting to hear. All right. Our next presenters, I'm welcoming Lucrezia Spagnolo and Wendy Lancashire with the topic Resilience in Action, Digital Innovation and Intersectional Approaches to Addressing GBV.
Thank you. All right. And I'm going to move this out of the way because I tend to walk into things. All right. There we go. Can everybody hear me? Great. So my name is Lucretia, and this is Wendy. We'll be introducing ourselves, but we're here to talk about the Resilience in Action project. So my name is Lucretia, like I said, and I'm the founder and CEO of an organization called Vesta Social Innovation Technologies. And what we do is we build tech-based tools to really support and wrap services around survivors of GBV. And specifically, what we do is we combine technology and expert services and community-based services so we can help inform, support, and empower them on their journeys to healing and to justice. Not on the slide, but it's the basis, I guess, of our presentation, is that Vesta started in 2017 after several years of research and R&D. We worked with the University of British Columbia as well as the members of the Ontario Coalition of Rape Crisis Centers, some of which I know I've seen walk around here, that actually helped us put together focus groups to put together our first digital tool, which was called Vesta Community. Vesta Community was a web application that allows survivors of gender-based violence to document their experience, connect with online and in-person services, as well as police services if they chose to. And that actually formed the basis of our Resilience in Action project, because what we realized is that very early on, as we launched this in Kingston with the local sexual assault center, the police services there, and later Queen's University, what we realized is that we had created a web application that had over 45% of individuals use it to connect to police services and report. 24% chose to remain anonymous, and 18% chose to connect with services. So that formed the basis of where we're going to go further. We also realized that in 2023, 2024, over 50,000 individuals had accessed our online resources. So that then led us to believe we needed to scale this and expand this further. And that's what led to the Resilience in Action project. But before I do that, I'll let Wendy introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy, and I'm the Director of Community Support Services at a community health center here in Toronto called Davenport Perth, and really excited to be here with Lucrezia to talk to you about our Resilience in Action project.
Thank you. So what I realized was that back in November of 2024, I was actually at a presentation similar to this at Women's College Hospital, where I was talking about Vesta community. And I was approached by two young women at the end and said, you know, this is really interesting work that you're doing, but have you ever thought to adapt it to address intimate partner violence specifically around and for newcomer women? And I thought about it for a minute and I realized that over 67.7% of users of our web application actually had known and named offenders. And what I realized was that it could lend itself to intimate partner violence and domestic violence reporting. But of course, my first thought was, well, I can't do this by myself. I'm going to need partners because everything that we do is about co-development and co-design. So what I realized is that, especially as I started reaching out to organizations across this country and say, is this an issue? Or how big an issue is this? And I'm not going to go through all of this, but I realized that the rates among newcomer women and immigrant refugee women was almost at 50%. Then I also realized that we had to look at very specific factors and vulnerabilities that they faced, as well as specific barriers when it came to accessing supports. So that's when we started looking at, we've got to really come together and build a community of collaboration so we can co-develop and co-design the next phase of Vesta. So what we realized is that if we wanted to scale the platform, that, like I said, we really wanted to look at it from a trauma-informed manner and deal with community services as well and making sure we were developing. But we also realized that because of some of those unique barriers, we couldn't just look at it as a tech solution. We always realized, and I always thought, that you can't just build tech. It's a tool that you need to put in the hands of those that are directly servicing survivors. So what we also realized when I went back and looked at the research and looked at the evaluation of our Vesta Community Project is that we realized we needed what I called a human-mediated support. People were coming into their sessions at the Sexual Assault Center, asking them with their phone, saying, can you help me with the Vesta app? And it wasn't that they wanted help with the tech. What they wanted was help to understand, navigate the next steps. So we realized we had to build a navigator program, kind of borrowing a little bit from the healthcare system, and said, well, how do we best embed this? And so that we've got technology also accumulated with a human-mediated support to help them move along. We also wanted to make sure we were building something that was, resource building, and so that we were helping manage capacity issues, as well as creating a replicable, scalable model. So I'm going to go really quickly and just talk about intersectional strategies really quickly, and saying that for us, it was not just about using GBA+, but also when we looked at multidisciplinary community-based approach was different types of community organizations we work with, research institutions like the University of Toronto, McGill, as well as frontline organizations and that, like Wendy will speak about.
Okay, never had 6 minutes go so fast in my life. Okay, so at Davenport Perth, we have a lot of different programs, primary care, community support programs, but where we fit in with the Resilience in Action project is with our settlement program. We see about 500 individuals and families a year in our settlement services, and when a friend in common that we both have introduced me to Lucrezia and the project, I said, this is one we can get behind. A project where the voice of the people who are going to use it and recognition of the trust of the staff that support those women bringing all of that into the project is one that a community-based agency like Davenport can get behind. And what's really exciting about it is that it might start with our settlement services, but I think it's really going to grow to be able to support all of our services and hopefully in other community agencies as well. And we're really close to finishing, so I'm going to let Lucretia, this is her baby. I'm just happy to be along for the ride, so I'm going to pass it over to you to wrap up.
Thank you. So absolutely. One of the things we're looking at is making sure that we're building out capacity. We're also then integrating with and enhancing services instead of building above them, right? So we want to make sure we have replicability. And lastly, we also want to make sure, I know our time's up, that we have data. We realized from our Vesta Community Project that we started building up just benchmarks and data and understanding how individuals are actually behaving and navigating through some of our systems, which was invaluable to help looking at then bring other partners on board, and as everybody in the room is always looking for further funding.
Hi, everybody. So I'm here to present on an innovative model of trauma-informed mental health care for children exposed to sex trafficking. And more specifically, I'll be sharing about the Lotus Health program at Sick Kids Hospital here in Toronto. So my name is Shira Segal. I'm a psychologist at Sick Kids, and I'm presenting today on behalf of two other members of the Lotus team, Jasmine, Eliav, and Corry Azzopardi. So just want to give a very brief content warning before I begin. My presentation does touch on content of a sensitive nature, so I will be referencing child sex trafficking and trauma. I just encourage everybody to continue with caution, engage in self-care, and seek support as needed. I also want to briefly acknowledge our program's funders, as well as our community partners. So just looking at the different organizations here, I really want to acknowledge that there's so much importance in the collaboration of community partnerships. These organizations all play a key role in anti-trafficking work in the city of Toronto, and I want to recognize that no one organization can do this work alone. So now on to Lotus Health. So Lotus Health launched at Sick Kids in 2019, so it is a relatively young program. It's Canada's first pediatric hospital-based program specializing in child sex trafficking. So we service youth both exposed to and at risk of sex trafficking. We provide both medical and mental health care for youth under 18 years old from a trauma-informed lens. And our team is interdisciplinary, so it consists of pediatricians, nurse practitioners who deliver the medical care, and psychologists and social workers who provide the psychosocial care. We also have a peer support worker with lived experience on our team, which is the first of its kind in a hospital-based setting, and really reflects our program's commitment to integrating lived experience and survivor-informed practice in all aspects of our work. And so youth have multiple touch points when they come in for a visit. For many, they get interested first in the medical services, and then they're offered psychosocial support once they're connected. And so we all work very collaboratively within both kind of sides of our team. And I'm just putting a link here with a QR code to our model of care guide that we developed in collaboration with other community partners and survivors across sectors in Toronto to highlight our community's response to sex trafficking. So I'll leave that up there for a moment. Okay. All right, so just in terms of some of our patient characteristics, the mean age of our patients is just under 15, and over 90% are females. Regarding mental health status, some of the research that we've done in our clinic shows that about 2/3 of our population present with either anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, or substance use disorder. Suicidal ideation rates are over 50%. And so from this, I just really want to highlight that these rates are all kind of well above what we see in the general population, as well as the population of abuse and maltreated children. So this data just really further emphasizes the complex mental health profile of youth exposed to sex trafficking and highlights the specific need for trafficking-specific programs. Okay, it's not responding. Hit the next slide. Thank you. So we're in the process of writing up some of this data for publication, but we have measured several different outcomes within our clinic when our youth are seen at the time of referral to the Lotus program and then 4-month follow-up. And we have found statistically significant improvement in most domains of these outcomes, such as physical health, safety, housing, social support, just to name a few. Okay, so to dive a little bit deeper into the mental health care that we offer, these are some of the guiding principles of our model. And again, I'll leave this up here for a few moments just to read through. And what this really looks like on the ground is a very relational intervention. So the relationship and the rapport are at the forefront, or an intervention that is integrative, multimodal, and flexible. And that really takes all of these principles into consideration. Okay, so now on an even more fine-grained level, these are some of the specific strategies that guide our work. So first, we really recognize that our youth present with complex clinical profiles that require a specialized, individualized approach to mental health care. So one-size-fits-all model does not work for this population. We really recognize that trauma is at the forefront for our youth, and so we bring that lens to kind of all provision of service that we carry out. We recognize that a lot of the youth that we serve are not going to be a great fit for highly structured models of care, which is why our model is integrative, multimodal, and really tailored to each youth's unique needs. So we pull from different orientations depending on the youth's individual needs. So for example, at time we might draw on CBT skills when really directly working with the PTSD symptoms. We might pull on DBT skills when there's kind of crisis of emotion dysregulation, and mindfulness for supporting grounding and stabilization. So it's multimodal in that way instead of following a very specific time frame. We are also often moving between crisis-oriented and therapeutic stages with these youth, so our work is very flexibly built to go between those. Assessment is carried out on an ongoing basis, so we understand that needs change as we go. So instead of having kind of a single assessment time point and then building our intervention based on that, we're often doing assessment on an ongoing basis. Our youth are often kind of experiencing continual, ongoing traumatic events. And so there's not one incident that we're addressing, but considering how that impacts our work. And our work is very patient-driven. So agency is such a big deal for the kids who have experienced this type of trauma. So we really create space for them to identify a time in the session for their immediate needs to feel kind of seen and responded to. So that's really not how they typically experience the world in other settings. And so it may kind of in other settings look like, okay, tell me your goals, we'll work on them over the course of therapy. At Lotus, it's very much, okay, you didn't have breakfast today and you want me to talk to your CAS worker, let's get you some crackers and do that. That might not be kind of the highest on my therapeutic goals, but that is what that youth is wanting today. And so we want to make them feel heard and listened to. We also see our patients on a long-term basis, which is a bit unique for hospital settings. So as long as patients are engaging with us and benefiting, we are continuing to engage with them. Our work takes into consideration the impact of developmental trauma, attachment concerns, and the unique influences of coercive control and trauma bonds that present in the domain of sex trafficking. We also anticipate disruptions to care and have built-in very flexible policies to accommodate for that. So for example, if teens haven't shown up for months, they don't need a re-referral to engage back in our services. If they show up, we'll see them that day. And last, we just recognize that so much of the work with these complex youth is really about helping to build up and mobilize their larger support systems. So we figure out who are the other caring adults in their life across sectors. We have very frequent case conferences to make sure we're sort of working as a unit and really strengthening everybody's abilities to see the strength in these youth and support them. And that piece is so critical. If anyone's interested in learning more, I can click for this article. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Beverley Essue, and I'm an associate professor and Canada Research Chair at the University of Toronto. It's my pleasure to be here. It's also, I'm riding off of a little bit of adrenaline because we're having problems with slides, which is exactly what you want before you give a presentation. Would it be helpful to run it off of the drive, off of the thumb drive? Okay, so I'm going to just talk as we go. So what I'm going to share today is a research project that came out of a community partnership with an organization called the Dr. Borna Masami Foundation, which is a foundation within the city. Runs predominantly in Toronto, but operates across Ontario. and provides gold standard dental care to individuals who have experienced intimate partner violence. They contacted me because I do a lot of research on access and access in the context of made marginalized populations within health systems globally. And they found that the program that they had developed and had been running for a number of years in Toronto, the patient population didn't reflect at all the population and the diversity of the city of Toronto, and they wanted to know why. So we partnered and were able to receive some funding, and when the slide eventually comes up, you'll see we pieced together funding from a lot of different places to do some qualitative research that we supplemented with arts-based methods to ask this question of barriers to access to dental care among racialized women. We prioritized Black women, South Asian, East Asian, and Latinx, reflecting the main racialized populations within our area. So you might think to yourself, my goodness, dental care, it's such a niche level of support. And I thought this as well. But those of us working in the field know that head trauma and trauma to the face is one of the most common injuries that individuals face. And given the lack of funding for dental care, it looks like we're just going to talk about this research. I can share the slides later. Oh, sure. It's in this bag here at the back. Okay. It's also one of the areas that is least thought about when it comes to accessing support. Yes, I do. Okay, so it's also one of the areas that is prioritized lowest, in part because it costs, but also because of lots of other factors. So we designed a qualitative research project. We recruited about 20 women and engaged them in interviews. We also recruited a number of dentists and people who worked within the shelter system and other community organizations. This is really fun. Okay. And essentially took them through a set of research to understand women's perspectives, service providers' perspectives, community perspectives on what are some of the challenges with engaging with the dental care sector. We then invited women back to participate in an arts-based methods to develop self-portraits using collage methods to basically tell their story of access and to tell their story of why it was meaningful to be able to experience, have their dental care needs addressed and what that meant in terms of, I mean, I'm a health economist by training, which you might think this is such a interesting intersection. But we were interested in understanding the way in which dental care provides a route to economic empowerment and provides a route to confidence and reentry into one's life. And all of those things, as you can imagine, will come up. And if we can get the video to work, we developed a lovely visual story that tells the story of this research. Why I feel like this work has had, where are we? Okay, so that's great. You could probably skip, well, maybe we'll just show slide 3 because I'd love to be able to acknowledge the people who are involved in this research. So we have a number of community partners who are involved in the program, a large advisory committee who continue to be quite engaged across a number of institutions. I mean, here we are. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you, okay, so let's just skip. That's the method. We already talked about that. Okay, so I really am hoping this is going to work. Let's see. This is a digital story which brings together the art pieces and the women's, the quotes that you hear are quotes that have come directly from the research, which tell their story better than I am in this 7 minutes. So we can maybe stop the video there. Thank you. And if you just move to the next slide is my final slide. So we used digital storytelling as one way to bring the experiences we heard in the interviews together with the information we heard from providers, together with the art pieces. And actually just this week, the paper's been accepted in dental traumatology, which is really exciting. So I can share the reference with you. What you heard in those voices and experiences is the kind of complexity of the challenges and pervasiveness of trauma that represents as people enter the dental chair in this very close space that requires a lot of trust from the provider. We also learned quite a lot about the ways in which axes of identity, particularly race, complicate the access experience. You know, a lot of solutions kind of came through in this research. And if you just push the last click, there's just an animation piece. What came through time and time again was that people wanted to be made to feel like they were seen in the experience. And all of you in the room, I don't need to say that this is like a call to action for trauma-informed care for dentists, which, if you can believe it, doesn't exist within their training. The CSO, the Royal College of Dental Surgeons of Ontario, has taken this up. We're delivering a webinar that will reach 11,000 dentists across Ontario later this month. They want to create a Category 1 continuing development or professional development course that all dentists in Ontario will be required to take. And we're advising on a set of questions that are going to go into the exam that all dentists have to write within, to be accredited in Ontario. So we didn't dream this was going to happen, but here we are. And so I'm delighted to have an opportunity to share this research with you. Thank you.